at the rear of Dean House. You should not return to the building for any reason until you have been advised it is safe to do so. Can I remind everyone, please put your mobile phone onto silent mode and keep the phone away from the microphones in order to minimize any interference. And yes, did you all hear me? Did you all hear me? Yeah, I don't need to start again. Right, the meeting will be recorded and live webcast. Therefore, when speaking, please remember to speak clearly into your microphone. As the chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and webcasting if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting. Recording and webcasting of confidential items will also not take place. Please remember, if you leave the meeting room for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item being discussed at that time. Please, I request that when speaking, make your points as succinct as possible to allow for a smooth running of the meeting. Guidelines, it's usually 3 minutes. That's what members of the public have given to speak. Please, I will also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times. The members of the public wishing to use the toilets, these can be found off the landing immediately outside the committee. And I request that anyone who has brought a cup, finally, I request that anyone who has brought a cup or glass into the committee room, can you please return it to the kitchen area after the meeting has finished. Very much. So, yes. For those just arrived, in case of a fire, please follow everybody else. Right. Okay, so good evening and welcome to everyone. As is our custom, we always begin full council meeting with a moment of reflection. And this evening we have Mr. Andy Spragg from the Sanger Centre. I'd like to invite him to come and give us a few words. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me here this evening. I'm going to tell you a little story. Don't worry, it's not long. There were two Norwegian sailors who joined the Norwegian Navy at the same time, and they made a pact as they joined. Essentially, what they said was, as they went through the Norwegian Navy, they would big each other up whenever they met someone in seniority. And that's what they did, these two sailors. They rocketed through the ranks of the Norwegian Navy because they became an absolute urban unit. Whenever their names were spoken about, other people had already heard of them, and they quickly got promoted, record-breaking speed. In Buddhism, we have a practice of positivity, and we couple this with what we call the right intent unity. In our modern world, there are plenty of things that raise a feeling of negativity in us, lots of troubles. So practicing positivity in this environment is difficult. Feelings arise inside of us that make us feel that being positive in the face of all these challenges is rather artificial. Seems to lack integrity. And then our mind kicks in with lots of thoughts justifying this feeling that has arisen. That dialogue in mind tells us it's not surprising I feel artificial. This has happened, that person said this. Then positivity is replaced by negativity. Thoughts turn into words, and these go out into the world, influencing others' perceptions. What matters here is the intent. The intent to push for positivity in our minds. This slowly changes us. Going back to the story of the two Norwegian sailors. Imagine if the people of Taunton, whenever they spoke to others outside of the town, spoke in positive terms, putting across its positive aspects. If enough of us did this, then a new myth would start to circulate far and wide about this lovely town, painting a picture of a great place to live, to work, and to visit. the perception of Taunton externally starts to change. People would want to come, to visit, to invest, to base their companies here. Somehow, as a Buddhist and a person who loves Taunton very much, I believe we need to work together to do exactly this. Paint a positive picture of Taunton, even if it feels artificial to us at first. We push forward with right intent, positive, compassionate intent to change perceptions. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And it's a lovely reflection. And I hope you all bear that in mind as we come to discuss and take many decisions, that you take them in a positive way and make the positive decisions. So we will now move on to a type of public questions. I have one already supplied, to which a response will be given. So can I invite Mr. David Orr? So I suggest we have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I do have some sympathy for the predicament of this brand new council and its first year basis. Very late in the day, Somerset Council cuts in basic services, leading to an unprecedented record of 173% rise in this council's reset. If Somerset Council had spotted the estimated by the way, 100 million black hole much earlier, then you would have had time for thoughtful consideration and time to consult the people of Taunton. Regrettably, I do not now have confidence in the financial management and budget forecast of the new unitary council, nor do I think they've made significant internal efficiency savings aimed correctly enough. Bill Revens and his colleagues had a year to prepare the unitary, almost 1 year earlier, so it is now simply too late to make the last one. I feel that Somerset Council have held a shotgun to the heads of town and parish councils, with Bill Revens as some sort of cartoon villain. Your money, or your park gates, toilets, and CCTV, get it. I didn't want a unitary based on the old county council, nor did I think that most of the old county council reps would be retained without an open national competitive recruitment process. Quite how things will change for the better when they stay the same simply eludes me. Taunton lost its county council back in 1974, while all the other Somerset towns have had many decades to become established, build up reserves, and decide thoughtfully which assets and amenities they would like to hold from. The back to the 1970s metaphor for me is the officers at Somerset Council, apparently hardly opening county holders, so most of them were totally from owner, coming up with an £8,000 by brigade logging cut. This is a miserly and absurd cut towards a forecast of 100 million black hole. It's the first time the people of Somerset have faced not being able to get in their park since it was built by the Victorians. Nothing like reducing the management costs, sweating the assets, and sorting out big standards there. Unitary councils like Rotherham and Welbeck, Wiltshire should make things more to look at vision. Now your toilets or CCTV will depend on whether your local small council takes them on or not. To pee or not to pee, that is the question. Will this council take on foot and bike paths in order to maintain and improve them? Will the spotted pedestrian alley between the present car park and Flash Street by the border of Henry's Park be taken over by this council and improved? And Tom has gone about that a few times. Will this council amend their constitution to accept petitions of 100 more signatures, as most other councils do? I did raise a petition, did get over 100 signatures. And the last thing I'd like to say to you, accepting that your precepts are quite low. Will this council amend their constitution to limit precept rises to 10% or hold a referendum to test public supported fire? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Councillor Deacon, as leader, would you like to respond?
Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Orr, for attending this evening and for all of the effort and engagement that you've put into local democracy and it takes you amount of time to do the research and the information that you gather. So thank you for that, because it's an important part of the system. Just with regards to unitary, I won't talk in too much detail about Somerset Council, because I think we're here this evening to talk Town Council, so I'll focus on what we're doing as a council rather than Somerset Council. But just my thoughts on, I agree with you regarding unitary. I didn't want it at all. I think it was a bad idea from the outset, but we are where we are. And I know that the administration of Somerset Council, the situation is not their making, it's certainly not their choosing, but it is their responsibility to sort it out. And I know that that's what they're going to work hard to do. In terms of here in the Taunton Town Council, so as you referenced, we are rightly writing the historic role. Taunton Town not having this level of representation like every other town across Somerset having. And I think it's also fair to say, and we've learned this year, is that actually the original precept this town council was provided by the former district council, it wasn't big enough for the ambition and the things that this town wants to achieve. And I would chair of the Shadow Town Council, but I put my hands up and say, you know what, we probably didn't quite get that right. And I think in politics we should put our hands up when we don't quite think we've got things right, and I don't think we put enough resource behind the ambition that this council would have. So I think that's also what we're doing this year, for reflecting that ambition and being able to deliver important services that, as you referenced, people think are really, really important. And that's what this budget was really all about. It's about making sure it gives us the tools to be able to respond to the things people care about and putting us in the same bracket as other large town councils across Somerset. It's worth saying that the increase isn't all for the devolution. About 16% of the overall budget next year is related to devolution services. That's from Somerset Council, about 25% of the increase. So 3/4 of it are actually in terms of improving service delivery, things that we already have in growing plan. In terms of the timeline we were working to, so we needed to agree our budget by the time frames that we did. Our precept had to be submitted by the end of that week, or after we would have been breaking the law. So we need to get our budget in. But I can assure you that in the background, the team were doing a huge amount of hard work to make sure that the numbers were constructed or put together in the right way. And I think we've seen some evidence of that when we see some of the service devolution data coming forward this evening that are on our agenda to prove that the right scope of number in order for us to preserve those vital services. In terms of footpaths, so yes, we will look to take on some footpaths, and indeed those narrow spaces we were already responsible for, but there is space in our budget to be able to do those extra tidy up and clean up jobs around town where we can, on other things like footpaths. So yes, we'd like to look at exploring doing more of that work. The Gresham Alley, yes, we've been in touch about that, and hopefully you recognise that the positive impact of boarding up every farmhouse has had on that area. So that's an initiative we undertook during the previous year, and that's an positive impact. But we agree that what will be on that alley, and when we grow that town warding team, which also includes in this budget, we'll be able to do more jobs like that one around the town as well. On petitions, you've highlighted something that's missing in our policy pack, our comprehensive policy pack, which is a petition policy. So we'll make sure that we get that one drafted and written up and added to the pack. So thank you for flagging that, because that's an important thing for us to have. So we'll make sure that we have that. I think it's important that there'll be some things in there, like making sure the petition is addressed to the town council. I don't think your petition being was addressed by local MP, not to the town council, and also that we need to make sure that signatories are probably people within the town council area. So these are rules in there that the policy will come forward for members to scrutinise. And in terms of the cap on how much parish council can increase council tax by, that's government legislation at the end of the day. So regardless of what we put in our standing orders, it's the government who decides the cap on precepting for parish councils, which is what we are. So that's where that legislation lies. I just want to finally say that I think we both want the best for our county town. I know everyone always agree on everything that the council's doing, but I think you can see that what we're trying to do is put forward the right things to enable us to take steps forward that we think are best to improve our town, not just for today, but for the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cleveland. Are there any other questions? I can make one. Yes.
Or is this rise to the total town council is through the back door of some of the council. Because they can't put theirs up more than 5%. They want you not to put it up. Take stuff over through the back door. Not gonna happen. Is what I will do is give you 5%, Somerset Council 5% extra in council tax and 5% total town council. You won't get a penny more out of me. That's a honest truth.
Thank you very much.
No, he's welcome.
Yeah, happy to respond. Thank you again for your attendance. Mr. Rose, I've experienced the statistic I gave in my previous response, which is The individual contingencies account for 16% of our total budget for next year, and 25% of the increase. So 3/4 of the increase is not related to Somerset Council. And I would just re-emphasise as well, putting up council tax is never an easy thing to do, and it's taken with a heavy heart. I would direct people who are struggling or worried about future council tax to point them to the council tax hardship fund and the support scheme available for Somerset Council and direct subsidy and that scheme.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the members of the public? No? In that case, we shall begin tonight's meeting for the council. So the first item, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Evans. I have
Councillor Richard Mason, please.
Councillor Richard Leeds. Right. I think that's everyone accountable. Yeah, I think that's it. Right. Second item, ahead of tonight's meeting, does anyone have any declarations of interest they wish? Right, okay, then we go on. So, item 3, the minutes from the last meeting. First of all, do I have any comments about the minutes from the last meeting? Has anyone got anything they wish to add, change, amend, alter, object to? Gone, right? Okay, so. Yes, that's right. So can I have a proposer for the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Strauss. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Right, all those in favour of accepting these minutes? Yeah, it's carried. Unanimously. Right, okay, so thank you very much. Right, item 4, communications and announcements from myself. Doesn't seem that long ago since we last met actually, so haven't really done that too much more. 4 things I'd just like to highlight. First one is last Thursday, I went to the Armed Forces Covenant breakfast, and Councillor Fernandez accompanied me to that. It was a lovely morning, very early start, but it's very good to meet all the other businesses and organisations that have signed up to the Armed Forces, and we were very proud to, as a council, to be one of those. During the meeting, we had 2 companies who signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant, which is their undertaking to not show any discrimination against veterans or people in the armed forces or reservists. And during that meeting, they also talked about the awards, bronze, silver and gold. And I think myself and Councillor Fernandez decided that actually as a council, we have signed up to the Armed Forces Covenant. And I think it's important that we do also go for a bronze award and hopefully a silver award to follow. That just puts into place items in our human resource policies that details the provision we make for those who are serving, it could be reservists, so giving them additional holidays, and also actively trying to employ people who have been veterans or are reservists or in the armed forces. I think it's a very important thing to do. On Sunday, we also had the Royal British Legion Conference held here in Taunton. I sadly wasn't able to go to that, but Councillor Garthwaite, and again, Councillor Strauss, I think they went along on my behalf, and that was a good afternoon.
Yes, it's lovely.
Excellent, good. So, and I think it was their AGM. Yes. So, and it's out of Vicarage. But thank you very much for attending. Instead, on Sunday morning, I went back from Brighton for this one, Saturday evening, and a much better journey back than it was on the way down there, because this year the Soroptimist, you have to say that quite slowly because it's quite hard. Soroptimist were able to restart their annual swimathon. They raised money for local charities, Sierras for Young, Sunset Youth Services, and ups and downs. And it was very important to be there as a present, so they were very keen that the mayor was there to promote it, because it's been absent for years due to the pandemic. And I think it's really good to be able to go there and just help with the publicity to relaunching it. It just looks nice. It looks good, that it's been taken seriously. The invitation came quite late for us to raise a team, because in the past, the mayor has usually entered a team for this. And looking at the photos, I see that Councillor Smith-Roberts used to stand 4 years ago for them, along with Councillor Dixie Dutch. And so we have had a team. Unfortunately, the invite came through just literally days before Christmas. There was just too much to organise a team and to organise sponsorship. But it would be very nice if we could, as a council, enter a team next year. So I am looking for some swimmers. It doesn't just have to be councillors. Yes, a lot of back pedaling on the pedal over there. So, and that'd be great. Yes, so, but so looking, so next year I will certainly sign up. I'm a keen swimmer, so I'm on the 10K, I can swim 10 lanes. Oh, two. Any more? So okay, well, that'd be good. So pencil that in your diary, because it will be the first weekend of the February half term. It's always the first weekend of February half term. So that'd be excellent, good. And hopefully whoever the mayor is next year will be along, joining in. And just to say, I did ask them to email me to say how much they've received, and they haven't, but I do know that by Sunday morning they'd already raised over £6,000. And that was before any further contributions came through on Sunday. So it's really good, very good. I'd just like to mention, of course, that this Saturday is the Male Voice Choir concert. It's at St James's Church at 7:30 in the evening. This is in aid of the Mayor's charity. So if you're free and available, please do come along and come and support that event. So let's just say it's 7:30 on Saturday, St James's Church. And finally, we should have all received from Joe about the Civic Awards. So on the 5th of March, we have our annual town meeting. So for many of us who are new, we're probably not entirely sure what that is, but it's being held at the cricket ground. It's not an actual council meeting, but members of the public can come along and ask us questions. And that's an ideal opportunity. But this year, because we're new, trying to get the Civic Awards up and running. Hopefully next year, we're going to do it slightly differently. That's maybe more of a day of it with the meal, and like some other town councils do. Thank you very much for all those who have submitted nominations, and we shall be inviting them to come along. So look forward to seeing you all on that evening. Apart from that, that is all I have to say. So I can move straight on to item 5, which is to ask a report from Councillor Tom Deacon.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I don't really have anything additional to report. Given we're here a couple of weeks ago. So it's not that's it this time. Thank you very much.
Oh, lucky you. I didn't think I'd done that much. So, right, item 6. Now, do we have reports from any outside bodies? So, Councillor Fernandez, I know you're part of the LCN.
Yeah, sadly I couldn't get to the LCM, but I believe Councillor Strauss attended on my behalf, so maybe Martin, if you want to leave that.
Councillor Strauss, are you happy to?
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't expecting to make a report this evening, I'm afraid, but it was very useful. A lot of the matters were discussed. And, I haven't got anything specific about that.
Okay. Okay, that's well, thank you very much for going along and attending on our behalf. Yeah.
I also attended virtually councillors. It was a very interesting session. I think a number of Twin Matters were also there in the room. There was a really useful section on business continuity. And yes, we obviously as a council we need to look at and ensure how we are supporting our communities when those events that nobody wants to happen do show. Very interesting.
And Councillor Smith Roberts.
I just wanted to add that on raised it in relation to civil contingencies and the fact that lots of parishes have civil contingency plans, not just for flooding, but for wider issues. There was road traffic conditions as an example, or traffic accidents on the M5, things that can cause lots of issues in the wider Taunton area. So I do think it would be good for communities, or one of the other communities, or even a small working group, however that works through our democratic process, to start looking at what that means for Taunton, because I think the last big buzz was 1960 on Triple, and we need to have things in place. I know Carrow's keen in North Town as an example, that we've got really need to think wider than that.
Councillor Stress.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just found my notes for the meeting. There was also a discussion about flooding across Somerset and precautions to be taken, which is quite important. And the other matters have already been raised by fellow councillors.
Are there any councillors who've been to other outside bodies who would like to report back? Okay. In that case, we should move on to item 7, which is report and a presentation on the service devolution on Somerset Council. And for this, I'm going to call on Chris Paul from Somerset to introduce herself and also to introduce the colleague.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this evening. So my name is Chris Wall, I'm Executive Director of Community Services within Somerset Council. I thought it'd be quite helpful to come along and just give you a very high level overview of the services that are included in your budget for this evening for considerations for whether you grant fund those services. So it's referred to as devolution quite frequently, and actually the 3 areas we're referring to tonight will continue to be delivered by Somerset Council or their respective contractors. And the question in front of you this evening is whether you will support fund those for the benefit of the people of Taunton. So it's not devolution in its truest sense, this would be you funding that continuation service. So the first on the list this evening, I did try to get these down to 1 slide each, by the way, and I failed initially, but I will be prompt. So the first on the list this evening is around CCTV. So if you go to the next slide. So this is a function that's been provided centrally across Somerset in various guises. Is now centralised around Sedgemoor House, and Sedgemoor District Council have previously provided this for the 4 districts. The 5th district being Mendip operated it themselves, and they've now transferred across here. So there's one centralised control centre, monitoring cameras across Somerset, so just over 230 cameras covering the main conurbations of Somerset. Been in operation since 1994. It's recognised by the police as being well run and well operated. It sits within the council's usual controls and audit processes. We have qualified and trained staff, so trained to the internally recognised standards, but those are also approved by the police, and they are SIA accredited employees. So they are able to take calls directly through the police radio system. So that isn't necessarily unique, but it is a privileged position to have direct access to the police 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, not only to the camera system and then directly to the police themselves via their radios. So they're able to monitor incidents that are happening live in the moment, all of that essentially recorded and then provided to the police and others for evidential purposes. And there are a range of interactions, well in excess of 1,000 occurring each year, where there's a direct relationship with the police, and then there are some that are dealt with through other bodies. The proposal in front of you this evening is whether Taunton Town Council chooses to fund the continuation of the Taunton cameras, and the cost of that is £167,000 for 24-25. Now the next slide, please. So The management responsibility sits with Somerset Council, so we directly employ one manager and 10 team members who monitor those cameras. We have usually, depending on need, around 2 operators on call and on call in the contact centre at any one point of time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's compliant with the codes of practice, as I've mentioned already, and they're SIA accredited. And we are able to monitor, record, and then download very quickly for the police or others any of that information that is required. So there's a live interaction that takes place. When there is an incident occurring, we're able to then track individuals or criminal activity through the town centre, and we can identify those people arriving into the town, committing an offence, hopefully being apprehended, but if not, we're able to track them until they depart the town centre. Next slide, please. So the cameras are set out as you can see on the screen. I'm not going to run through the list, but there are a range of cameras covering the majority of the town centre and then some into the periphery as well. So that is almost a stop all. I'm going to move on to the next item, but happy to take questions at the end. So the next one is around driving park locking and unlocking. So Somerset Council employees unlock the park each morning at 7:30 as part of their normal duties. At the same time, they undertake a safety inspection and check the park is suitable for the public, and then report any obvious damage that's occurred. We operate with an external contractor to undertake the locking. We have done it with our own staff in the past. That is problematic when you have issues around lone working, and it is out of hours for a council's normal operation. Whereas for a security company, they include this as part of their routine around town, undertaking various of the services. They have backup that they can call upon, but they will go through and they will clear the park. So there's 7 gates through the park. They will clear anybody in the park that shouldn't be there and lock those 7 gates. And the cost to us is just over £8,000 for them to undertake that work. And then Somerset Council staff coming on the morning unlock. So there's no cost in that sum included for the unlocking. It's part of the normal Somerset Council staff duty, and they will continue to do that. So the cost of 24-25 for you to consider is solely the cost of that external security contractor. Next slide, please. And then on one more. So this relates to the Taunton Visitor Centre. So this is the section of the market house that hopefully you'll be well aware of. This is staffed by Somerset Council employees. You can see the opening times there in front of you. We see between 40 and 50,000 visitors annually, and they undertake a range of services. So we've got some breakdowns there of the actual footfall in terms of this year. Slightly down so far, but it fluctuates as we can see. Next slide, please. So they undertake a range of tasks, all manner of things from operating a separate box office to managing sales of coach tours, tickets, holiday extras, etc. And there's a revenue that's generated through that service as well as a cost. In coming to the cost that we are asking of Taunton Town Council, which is £114,000 to keep that service going, all of the income assumptions have been netted off against that. So it's the whole cost of the service operation minus all of the income that's expected, and that's what comes to the net position that is being asked of you this evening if you would like to see that service continue. I think it's really important to understand that this is a continuing service by Somerset Council. You're not accepting responsibility or liability for any of the assets as part of this. You're not accepting any responsibility or liability for the employees. So the employees are retained by Somerset Council or with the contractor in the case of the locking and unlocking. And in most instances, these buy you, as the principal funders, get to pass this evening, an opportunity to work with Somerset Council around how you want to see these services continue. So we're aware that there are CCTV centres, for example, that operate at a lower cost. We're aware that there are different models of operation, and we're completely open to having conversations around how that service is delivered in the future. And if that service becomes cheaper, then so does your contribution. Your share of that overall sum is based around the number of cameras that are there and its current operation, but any efficiencies made will see a reduction to that sum as we go forward. In terms of advisory lock-in, again, it's done through the contractor, but it's also town council had a view as to whether they would like to do that differently in future years. Again, we're completely open to that. It's not perhaps something you want to explore around using your own staff. We will want to talk to you about some of the risks around doing that, but that would be your choice. So you're not tied into any agreement beyond 24-25, but clearly it would be your best budget for you to have some choices. And then this visitor centre, as I said, so will be a continuing employer being Somerset Council. So a real whistle stop tour, except there is obviously a lot more detail behind the scenes here. If members would wish to have a further breakdown of how those costs and income work, we're more than happy to do so, but we're trying to give you a simplistic figure on which you can make a decision this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. Do I have any questions from the audience? Councillor Packer Hughes, Mr. Byrne, and Councillor Ellis in that order.
Chair, I just wanted to ask, I was always thinking to the police, have you asked the police for a contribution to the CCTV costs?
Yeah, so the police currently contribute £10,000 per annum. We have asked them for additional funding. They have declined. We've also looked at the Safer Streets funding, which is a grant that this council received that was actually administered and allocated by the Police Crime Commissioner. And it's a very modest grant, but we have no control over it. Ultimately, they've declined to fund this service anyway.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you. With the Tourist Information Centre, what is the what factor is the biggest cost in in terms of the costs that comes with running the organisation?
Staffing is the bulk of the cost. So there's effectively 3 employees that operate from the location, obviously on a rotor system. Staffing is one of the greatest costs of that.
Start with a comment, maybe a question. Thanks for the info, Chris. I'm obviously very strongly supportive of us confirming that we are going to save these services by subsidising the services provided by Somerset Council. I don't think we have any other option. What we cannot have as a town is Taunton without a tourist information office, without its CCTV, and with advisory costs that are going to go to Rackham. That can't happen. This is Taunton, so this is a very pragmatic thing that we need to do. I think residents will welcome us confirming that we are going to secure the future of these services, because it doesn't matter if we go from which we lose them. I could go on about why they're important. It's obvious why they're important. Clearly, the CCTV plays a key role in deterring crime, making people feel safe, and actually apprehending criminals, providing useful service to the police. God only knows why they don't think that, why they funding it. That's I find that bizarre, but hey ho. And I think a lot of people attest to the hard work that company does. Actually, it's not just literally, as you described it, it's not just locking a few gates. It's a lot of work to be done in terms of, making sure that people who are in there and should be are kind of moved on, referred if necessary, clearing up with, referring things on. And the tourist information is vital. A lot of people don't have internet access, find it much easier to be able to pop in and get their tickets, from whether it's Taunton Brewhouse, Stacking Morris, or a lot of the one-off sort of concerts that happen around the year, the flower show tickets. It's so easy to be able to do that, and there's a wealth of information in there. Also, I think as Councillor Barslow said, she knows a lot of people who are new to Taunton, who are not visitors, but they've moved into the area, and they found it a really great source of information. So multiply the visitor centre. So I'm very happy to support that. My only question is around the CCTV, because obviously we're not the only councils that town councils that will need to subsidise. So if we can't afford with that, does that solve the sort of wider problem? I'm just trying to think if other councils who areas that are currently served don't also subsidise it. Is there a risk of that service, or are we saying if we do this tonight, then there's no sort of negative impact from other councils? Does that make sense? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So the overall cost of the service is around 650, just over, in fact, £650,000 per year. We have secured not all of that, but easily 75% of that, which would have been the service reduction had the council chosen to turn it off on the 1st of April, because they're in the lead in to being able to do that. So I think, testing my memory, I think 489,000 was what was put into the budget Somerset Council in terms of reduction if we ceased it. We have secured that amount and we've bought ourselves some time to secure the remainder. So as it stands today, yes, it would be a safe decision for you to take in terms of funding and receiving the same level of service.
Right. Flying questions. Councillor Lester, followed by Councillor Smith-Roberts, followed by Councillor Fernandez, then Councillor Virginia.
On the business centre, the 114,000 obviously represents a loss against. Is that purely the cost of being attributed to Somerset Council, or is that being shared across? Because it's Somerset, because it's now towards the emergency centre, and it's possible.
So 114,000 is the net position for the Taunton Visitor Centre. It doesn't include the other visitor centre in Hargate. It's the net position for Taunton and
is there anything in place to, if more money than we anticipate, that we will be
I think that would be a very reasonable request of Taunton Town Council, given that you're funding the next position. Now, of course, we could also get into a different conversation, couldn't we, about if the losses were greater. So at the moment of the budget setting, we are prepared to stand by the 140,000 figure. I think as we work together about what the future of that service looks like throughout the year, we'll know whether there is going to be a significant reduction in that amount, and it doesn't seem unreasonable to share it. But for the purpose of 24-25, we're not asking you to take on any additional risk. That would be the sum we would hold.
Just doing some maths and CCTV, sorry to follow up. Sorry. The total of the 167 plus the 489 is equal to the 650. So on now the council's contributing.
No, so that's purely coincidence. That is the ultimate breakdown, because we have received contributions from the majority of the town and parish city councils that have coverage. Not all. It's coincidence. Your 167 is included in our 489 figure.
I see. Okay, sorry.
And Councillor Smith-Roberts.
So I'm going to caveat this, that I'm wearing a Taunton Town Council hat here. And I only say that because I'm a lead member of the community in Somerset Council, and all three of these services sit within that portfolio. The reason I ask these questions is it would be good for us to understand what SLA would be put in place, because it is around us at Taunton Town Council, should the decision go through tonight that we're paying the bill. And then similar to what Simon said, if it is that the visitor centres see an uptake in the money that they get in as an income, it's about then, I guess, reducing that, or what is the risk, I guess, around reducing our contribution down at Taunton Town Council. Again, nobody, I guess, weigh that up, and it doesn't make such a bump for profit through sales in this case. I'd like to understand through maybe yourself, and Marcus has just left the room, but in relation to our clerk, and so as to what is the process from now onwards should we make this decision, so that ultimately we protect the money, the Taunton Town Council that we're putting towards this. In relation to CCTV, it is around us covering the cost for the services as they are now. We know, we've heard, and I think we've had correspondence from residents around the fact that there potentially are efficiencies and that other places do things differently. I believe Salisbury has been mentioned, and it would be interesting to know whether you know, Chris, or whether I think Marcus may have done some research into why the service that we get here is different to the services that are in other places that are being proposed by a business that is run from the town, so that we can understand what we get at the moment. And then if efficiencies are made, will the SLA be tweaked accordingly?
Okay, so, we're expecting and anticipating building an SLA in place. I think for both parties, we would want some flexibility in that. There's no point having an absolute rigid SLA while saying the whole purpose is to buy ourselves time to make a search more efficient. If actually we're bound to deliver a search to you, and then you agree that there's some efficiencies to be made mid-year. So there needs to be an element of flexibility. And then what we're saying to you is, if you sign up to these costs today, it will cost you more for that, 24, 25. In terms of the Salisbury model, they operate with volunteers primarily. That's the difference. We use employed staff. There are different models operating around the country. There are different outcomes from using volunteers, and that's not to say Salisbury case is better or worse, but we have seen even locally difficulties where you are reliant on volunteers to come in and cover a night shift on Christmas Eve, or any other difficult to cover time period for that matter, when actually the purpose of this is to provide a consistent service to support the reduction of crime in your town. So there are other models, we would like to explore them. I think there are other opportunities potentially for income generation as well, but fundamentally the difference is staff pay bill. We operate with 11 employees that are paid. Salisbury operates with, I think, a part-time manager, a couple of other part-time roles, and 20 volunteers.
Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, so I mean, I was pretty much going to bring up the same thing as councillor's been bothered about the different options. I think we do owe it to our residents because obviously this is public money that we're using, and I think, you know, if we can look at different options, and I completely agree, CCTV, we have to keep that, and that is without question. But I do think that, you know, as we move forward, and I think as Chris has already highlighted, and my various sort of colleagues have said the same thing, we need to look at ways of going forward with this once it's in place. So it's just a reassurance for the residents that they are actually getting value for the public money that we're using for this. Thank you.
I think that's probably more statement than question. We're having to give you all the information on we're having to do the cost of operation and the other alternative models.
Councillor Chini, then it's Councillor Tully and then Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Chair. Most of the questions that I was going to ask have already been asked. More a comment. I do have a little concern about the fact that we're being asked to hand over money, and although we've been told that obviously we can help shape things for the future, we do in fact have very little say. We're just subsidising service where things could be improved and maintained with our inputs, which we would actually have very little say in. I'm just looking at the figures for this sentence, and I don't think it's unreasonable to think we're being asked for a bill of 114,000, but the revenue generated from, and that's to maintain the service, the revenue generated from this percentage comes directly back to the town council, because we don't fund it, it falls apart. So if we're being asked to put our hand in our pocket to fund it, we should receive things back. And also, I don't know how it's, you know, I'm just looking at the actual footfall figures. I'm looking at Q3, and I'm thinking, well, they're near enough half of what they were at probably the most busiest time of the year for things for people looking to do. So things like improvement on the service itself, how much can we actually have a say in? Because obviously we're not taking it over as an entity itself, which is putting our hands in our pocket. And also, just for clarity, the CCTV, I understand Bridgewater Town Council, I think they've budgeted around £200,000 for this. But as you said, some town councils or city councils are not taking up the offer to contribute. So in effect, is Taunton Town Council subsidising other areas of Somerset that are not taking on the request that you've asked?
Okay, so in terms of the income for tourist information, it's already been net off. So the income has already been removed. If the income was then to be provided directly to you, the subsidy would have to be considerably higher. If we've already removed it, we can only take the income once. So the whole cost of operation minus the whole cost, sorry, all of the income, and that leaves us with the balance, and the balance is 114,000. So whether it comes directly to Taunton Town Council or directly to Somerset Council will just depend upon where it's accounted for in the transaction, but it can't be accounted for twice. So it has been removed already. In terms of how much stay, so that is the current cost, that is the current operation. I don't know what stay you would like, so it's difficult to answer the question, but we're open to shaping the service, so long as that shaping of the service doesn't suddenly cost an awful lot more. So if you want to open it into the evening, there will obviously be an additional cost to doing so. So it depends on what that shaping looks like, I suppose, but we're open to considering how that works. I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would imagine you also would like to look at whether that's a service you provide directly in future, or whether you would continue to subsidise it. There is a question there. In terms of the subsidy of others that haven't agreed to pay, then no, there is no subsidy. So effectively, we've taken the whole cost of operation for CCTV, we've divided it crudely by the number of cameras that exist, and then multiplied back by the number of cameras in each geographical location. So Bridgewater's sum is considerably higher, they have more cameras. It's as simple as that. For those areas that haven't yet confirmed their support, that will be effectively subsidised by Somerset Council until we either reach an agreement that they will subsidise, they will contribute, or those cameras will end up being switched off.
You've got to Councillor Talley, then Councillor Twos.
Thank you. Thank you. That's unbelievable. You're saying that because the council can't afford to pay them, they can lose their cover. We've got no option, and this annoys me, and this is what's annoying the people out there. You know, you're basically forcing us into whatever situation. It's starting to bloody annoy me. I know I don't know anybody else, but I don't give a damn about it. I'm a councillor for this council, and I'm not happy about this at all. I'm a bit happy. You know, yes, we'll have to do it. I've been told without notice and concern by someone in the town. We better make sure the cameras stay. But who's actually supplying the service for the cameras? Is it a foreign company? Can I ask that question now?
Yeah, so I just want to be really clear, because I understand the frustration. Somerset Council have a considerable budget gap. We know the story, adults and children's care costs. All officers of the council were told, go and find savings options, think the unthinkable and find savings options. Each of these three this evening were put forward as Somerset Council have the option to terminate that service. The question for you is, do you want to support that service for your local community? I can understand it feels like you're being placed in a very difficult position. I do understand frustration, but there is a choice, not a pleasant choice, but there is a choice as to whether you want to continue that for your community or not. I, as an officer of the council, I'm doing as instructed, and that is to find any and all options to help close the budget gap.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask who's actually supplying the service?
Yeah, my apologies. So it's delivered by Somerset Council employees. There are employees that are sat in the contact centre right now monitoring cameras around Somerset.
I come back in.
Yes, my nice.
Oh, thank you. Can I ask another question then? Why aren't we going to these big multinational companies and do it? Watford has a major company. Hitchin has a major company. Why are we doing it ourselves? Because I'm certain they can do it cheaper. You know, I'm answerable to one of the poorest wards in the country, let alone in Taunton, but in the country. And I have to explain to those people why they're having to pay more money than to us. And they expect me to give them an answer, and I can't give them an answer. I can explain the reasons. I understand what happened in Somerset. I understand the problem. And the problem for anybody here didn't start 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The problem started 10 years ago. That's when something should have been done about it. And that concerns me that nothing was done. But we're where we are, so we've got no option, we've got to pay. So I'd like to know what we're going to pay for, who's going to supply it, and if you went out to tender, you would go to at least 3 or 4 companies. We've just been told this is what the county are going to supply at whatever rate. What happens next year if you get in the same problem? So I don't see you can come out of that easy. Are you going to ask us for more money? And again, have we got to take our, no, you want to pay more? I'm sorry, it doesn't sound right to me. And it's not sound right, it's not right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I do believe Chris did say that we're going to look at other models in his previous answer. And I assume that would be a case now that actually we are going to be more creative and just look around and see where other savings can be made.
And so in answer to the specific question, there is always an option to outsource the service. Outsourcing doesn't necessarily make it cheaper when you have the protections of 2P transfer. So the most cost of this service is the people that operate it. Their terms and conditions in an outsource arrangement will be protected, and any outsource company will be looking to make a profit. Companies exist for profit. So the costs tend to rise. Not always, but there is a risk of doing so. We need to look at other models, and other models could be an outsource arrangement, it could be separate and segregated functions, it could be the use of volunteers, it could be a change to the way that we staff it. So at the moment it is staffed 24 hours a day. Actually, we know that there are peaks and troughs in the use and incidents that occur, and we can have a staffing model that's more dynamic to match those peaks and troughs. So there are alternatives which can be delivered. It does help to have a service in-house if you're going to make significant changes, because if you're outsourcing in a contract, you are bound by those contractual terms and costs for that set period. But it is an option. In response to your last question, what does Somerset Council do in the future? Asset and service devolution is something that we're going to be talking about for a long time, I suspect. There is a choice for each and every town, 16 parish councils, as to whether they want to engage in that conversation. For some of those town centres and parishes, this has been exactly what they've been waiting for a long time in order to release assets to their own control. So yes, it is going to be a cyclical conversation, I expect.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's the important point is that when it comes to CCTV, you know, providing a lot of safeguarding for our citizens here, and actually need to make sure they're getting the best service. Now, I've lost track where we've got to. It's Councillor Twos, and then all those wanting to put their hands up. So then I think it was, well, we'll start Councillor Twos, and I'll quickly catch up where we got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, firstly, thank you for giving me the time to come to talk to us this evening. I'm conscious Councillor Deacon hasn't come back yet. This is around CCTV provision and talking about evaluating different models. And what I haven't heard tonight is how, as a Taunton Town Council, we can actually make sure that happens. Where is that going to be? When is that going to be? And I guess my fear is because we're kind of the junior partner paying for just our part of the CCTV. In fact, if the unitary don't like the results or what we find from that, exploring different reasons, they can just turn us down. And then next year we're faced with that kind of analogy where we either pay up again or we lose our CCTV.
Let's go back to this one.
I think it's mainly a statement that our intention is to work with the partners, including Taunton Town Council, about how we can make this more efficient. This is a decision that I understand you're putting into your base budget. It's going to be cost neutral next year, and I highly doubt that. So making it cheaper and more efficient or increasing income, there is an option to do that, but is it going to cover ultimately £650,000 worth of costs across Somerset? That I think is a big ask.
Councillor Deacon, then Councillor Smith Roberts, Councillor Lester, then Councillor Smith.
Just to respond to a couple of the points that I had in the question, Brian. So that's actually Tracy being this evening. In terms of what we say to residents, well, I think the reality is that next year and future years, Somerset Council will be focusing increasingly on statutory services. These are have to be supplied by the CCTV is not a statutory service. Full stop. It just isn't. So that, well, it should be. I agree, but it's not. but it's not, that's the law. So therefore, those are the things on the list that they have to look elsewhere to see where they can be funded. Now, thank goodness, in my view, we put an agreed our budget, we agreed a couple of weeks ago, so if we hadn't agreed that, we wouldn't have even been able to be having this conversation today. And so it would be taken away from us, and it would be turned off on the 1st of April. Full stop. So actually, that's not sensitive, that's not saying us to bring them down that road, they can engage parishes and towns and city councils, they can just go turning off, but they haven't. They've gone out and come to people like us, asking for willing to take it on, and I think we should be commended for that personally. I think there is a fair couple of comments around value for money and being pushed around the money for spending on it, and I think Chris is okay with you in the SLA. I think I'd like to see some wording around forcefully reporting, open conversation about improvement, etc. Should make sure that we've got that in the agreement, it's all noted. I think it'd be great for your officers, the team, and something else to report back to us regularly about how the service is going and how the improvement work is going as well. If that's okay, I think I'd quite like to see that. And a question for Sally, which I think is probably quite an important one. Do we have the budget for this? Is it budgeted for? And I think it is, but I should confirm that it's definitely in there as a pot money we can use for these three things.
Yeah, so there's two pots to put devolution contingency, which is actually 282,000, so that's very close. And you also put 150,000 in for devolution services, so we can move those around and you can afford to do that.
Councillor Smith-Roberts, Councillor Lester, Councillor Strauss, in that order.
Mine's a process question, Tom's alluded to it, but I would like the an amendment to the recommendation in front of us that says that we would like the quarterly report in relation to devolved services through, is it communities or through this body, just so that I don't mind where it goes, but just so that actually we regularly as a council can see what is going on in relation to these services that we are now funding. So I don't know, Marcus, if you want to come in and say which one it should go to, but apart from as a clerk, whether you just say that it, or I can be broader in my recommendation and just say it comes back to council through the appropriate channel.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it could be broader, and then we can obviously go in the best route for that in terms of reporting back. Obviously, this isn't a new thing for us. We have officers that regularly meet with Somerset Council officers as part of the parks arrangement. There are regular monitoring meetings with officers from both councils on that. So I'm sure that together we can come up with something that works for both councils, but happy with all language. Thank you.
Right, I think we got to Councillor Lester, Councillor Strauss, and then Councillor Cheney, and then Councillor Sol.
I've just got a request for you. As you said, these conversations about devolution aren't going away. Can we please continue the conversations and give ourselves more time? We're only getting the hard stop the budget set, which isn't really giving us necessarily, in my opinion, the time to debate this as though it's perhaps some of us would like. So as these things happen, we actually have specific agenda items so that we're not suddenly, having to make these choices very quickly at the end of next year. Thank you.
Councillor Strauss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thank you very much for a very full presentation. You seem to be saying that it was better to perform those services in-house, and yet cleaning of public toilets is outsourced, and so I believe parking attendants. So there obviously is an argument whether you outsource services or actually use your own staff. I'd just like your observation on that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think my reference is it's easier to transform a service if you have control of the staffing, and therefore the staffing is not in the contract. So if we're going to make significant changes, having complete control over the service is much easier to transform. If it's in a contract, you're bound by the contractual arrangements. In terms of the IDV arrangements, both for street cleaning and public toilets, there's a paper working its way through our own committee cycle to in-source all of those services at the end of the contractual agreement. So we'll be bringing those back. Parking slightly different. there was a joint parking arrangement put forward by the previous authorities that was outsourced. I can't remember where that is in its contractual timeline, but there are some benefits to outsourcing, but you need to know exactly what you want, exactly how you want it delivered, and have a commitment not to change that service for the foreseeable future.
So that's the councillor Chin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Say in the last 3 years, how much has the cost for the CCT operation risen by, say, each financial year? Just so we have a picture of what realistically might rise, and for 25, 26, what we might be asked for again.
I don't have that on me, we can get that. We'll have to pull it from various sources because the mended arrangement wasn't part of the now Somerset total arrangement, but we can get that for you.
And councillor Sonic?
I'd like to say from now onwards in years to come, the more happening in Swansea with our vision, tourism will grow. More visitors and also the need for CCTV even more. But this puts us to the conclusion that this is not the position that we want to be part of, but we 100% small town council and residents need this. And for Taunton to continue to grow and drive safety and security into the future, this is the correct decision to go. But what frustrates me, Chris, going back to what you said, why are you only reviewing savings only now that you were in this financial position instead of prevention of reviewing over price overheads before?
So do you mean specifically in regards to CCTV or the council's general position?
CCTV.
Okay, so we've always felt that the CCTV operation was a worthwhile function, and we knew there's a cost of operating it in the format we do. And at a time when the individual councils had enough available budget, they felt that that was the right thing to spend it on. We now no longer have the available budget. We are now coming to individual towns and parishes and asking them to help contribute towards that cost. And they quite reasonably are saying, well, what are the alternatives? How do we make it cheaper? It may be that the standard of service that we've become used to at that cost is no longer the standard of service you want to deliver as a funder of that service. So we're coming to you saying, this is the cost to have it as it is. There may be alternatives. We're happy to work with you to bring down the cost of that delivery. But in the past, individual councils have accepted that this is the cost to deliver that standard of service, and we're satisfied to pay it.
Councillor Deaton?
It's a very brief one, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick thought, Chris, just because there are so many different partners, so just CCTV, so different ones, such different partners funding it. I think it'd be really useful once we're through the spend budget setting process, we have some sort of conversation with all of those partners about what other towns as well want to see, and so that we just keep it aligned. Because I guess what we don't want to happen is we want it or something as town council, we have Bridgewater do something else, and then we come back together. We've all gone in different directions here. Maybe we could set the scene early together, and then agree where we're going to go. I think that would be really productive. So if you're up for that, I think we'd like to be a part of that conversation.
Did you want to come back?
Yeah, so completely up for that. Just to be clear, we're not expecting you as an individual town council to then have to redesign the service that you're responsible for. We completely anticipate that's a responsibility on us working with them all, but the partnership meetings are fair comment and a different question.
Okay, I think we have discussed this quite thoroughly. Is there anything else pressing that somebody would like to say before we move on? Anything really pressing? If not, I think it's been a very useful conversation. These are all three services that I think all of us in here agree that they are essential to our safety, essential to our tourism and advertising ourselves, and just essential to maintaining one of our jewels in this town, Lively Park. So I shall read out what we are to do. So we are to consider agreeing to subsidise the following Somerset Council services in 2024-2025 due to their ongoing financial emergency. This is to include the CCTV with relevant service level agreements, and that's a sum of £167,000. Lively Park Gates opening and closure, that's to be a cost of £8,030, and the Tourist Information Centre at a cost of £114,000. A total of £250,000. I would very much like to vote on these as a block. Do I have an agreement on that, or does anyone object? No, okay, everyone's good. So in that case, for all three services, for us to fund for the all three services from our budget of 2024-2025, do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Sue Lees. I can now have a show of hands. All those in favour of this agreement, then please raise your hand. Yeah, majority. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, was there anyone wishing to vote against this? Right, excellent. Well, that was useful. That was good, and I think we really did go over around quite carefully. Yes, thank you very much for coming, Chris. Thank you for answering all those questions. Taking the time to do that. See you next year. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. Item number 8: the recommendations of Somerset Council Parish Town and City Independent Remuneration Panel. We all received a report on that. I'm going to hand straight to Marcus to give this report on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just briefly introduce the item and give a bit of background. Obviously, the budget for the first year of the council's existence was separate and included no funds to recompense councillors who are paid volunteers and for incidental expenses. At the September meeting, council, you may recall that the mayor and members' expenses policy was approved, setting aside a budget of £1,000 for this year to enable councillors to reclaim any such expenses. But as part of that meeting, you also resolved to request that Somerset Council's independent remuneration panel consider undertaking a review into the parish basic allowance, which is something you would have to do before you could look to institute any allowance scheme. We've received the final report which set out the panel's review and recommendations to consider should it wish to adopt such a scheme of allowances for its councillors, which is included within the pack. One thing I will just make clear is that the panel is independent from Somerset Council. Somerset Council provides support for the panel administratively. So I thought that was important to state. And also that you need to consider the proposed framework scheme prior to agreeing to adopt your own scheme of allowances. So that's why the recommendation states that you're considering the framework scheme and recommendations of the independent remuneration panel. Just going into some of the queries that have been raised in advance of this, and I think we were raised at the last council meeting a couple of weeks ago. Regulation 13 of the 2003 regs allows members to forego allowance if they wish to. They must just write to the proper officer, which is the clerk, to forego your entitlement to that. And in terms of, I'll just highlight regulation 30 as well, says that when we receive a copy of the report by the independent panel, we must ensure that copies of that report are available for inspection. So they're obviously included in the agenda pack, which is on our website, but they are also been posted on all of the notice boards around the town. The actual copy of the notice here is in your pack, so you should have seen that, and that briefly sets out the recommendations of the panel. I think that's everything. Oh, just yeah. So members do not have to declare a prejudicial interest in relation to this matter. It has been recognised that for the general exceptions from prejudicial interest, it's the authority's functions relating to members' allowances or payments made under the relevant legislation. And in terms of how this supports with our corporate plan, priority 5 being well-run future-focused council. Given Taunton Town Council is one of the largest town councils in the sector by population and budget, it's important that the elected representatives are able to devote the sufficient time necessary to their duties to enable them to be carried out effectively. And allowances but one mechanism to recognise and reward this commitment. And just in relation to the budget, at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, 24-25, an amount was included of 30,000 for a member allowance. And I think that's.
Do I have any comments or questions about Marcus? Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, really knows my views on this. Again. So we've made some budget revision of this, but it doesn't mean to say we have to do it. We might find it vital, but there might be other things coming forward, services that are on right now, services that are only just coming to realise the impact of some of the loss of Somerset Council funding. I'm very, very worried about that. For all that we've made, we've whacked our budget up. I think there are going to be nasty prices around the corner as the implications of funding cuts kind of filter through, and I don't think we're done yet having to consider how we mitigate them. So I'm very concerned about on a practical level. My other concern is that this year, when we are putting council tax up by such a huge amount because people even Taunton, we want to invest in Taunton, it doesn't sit well with me to at the same time be introducing this year basically a sort of recognition of, well, not just spending your time committed to town council. Now, my concerns, we currently have an expenses pot, but the budget currently says there's no members' expenses pot, it's just all of the members' allowances. So I think we need to distinguish between expenses, so travel expenses, and anything else you might want to add on top, because there are people who, if they certain councillors who, if they don't expense of getting here covered, will not be able to participate. So there are kind of costs at the level of removing barriers to participation that I would call sort of expenses and whatnot. And I know the report is a bit strange because it talks about mileage allowance, but it doesn't recognise that there may be disabled councillors who need a taxi to get here. So it doesn't really, there's lots of ways in which the report I find a bit lacking. I understand the sort of rationale behind the doing it as a percentage of Somerset Council. My concern is we're doing this now, this was this time next year, and things will stabilise, and that's the change of government, invest in once more in public services. And once we've had a chance to see actually how much more of a commitment it is, that's one issue. But this year, I am very, very reluctant to agree to the recommendations. Also, we don't have a spare, we have to, if we implemented their recommendations, we'd have to find another £1,000 out of another budget line to do that. So I would like us this year to not agree to this, not to pay ourselves an allowance, to reinstitute expenses. So like £2,000, set £2,000 aside for expenses, and show that we understand the position of people out there.
Just to add that we don't need to find another £1,000 for standing with the matter.
The mayor already has an allowance within the budget of 3,000. So actually, the 30,000 would be enough for 19 councillors with a little bit to spare, which would need to move a little bit to the mayor's to make it 3,100. So we don't find any more monies within the budget.
And just to say that actually this year, I haven't had an allowance, but that's expenses. Use much. Councillor Smith-Robinson.
I think I've publicly spoken about this before, about my desire to widen demographics and involvement in politics and make sure that politics is available for all, regardless of income, age, gender, lots of different reasons that independent of politics. I think actually as town council, from demographically wise, can probably do quite well compared to lots of other political institutions with our makeup. However, the reason I say this is I think that having a members allowance is something that allows people to partake without having to necessarily worry about their income being affected for the time that they devote to the community. I also believe, and I stand to be corrected by officers, that it's voluntary if you take it, you don't have to take it, so you can choose not to take it, but it allows those who have got to give up time from paid employment, or those that have a mortgage or other different reasons that then couldn't maybe do some employment at that time to be able to contribute to society. I therefore, for me, think it's something that we need to have. It encourages, I know that we haven't got elections not for 3 years, but it allows for people who want to come forward, start thinking that it's there. I get that this is a difficult time, but for residents, I get that we've increased council tax, but we've also all increased the responsibility that we are now taking. I want to say that the council tax income of Taunton Town Council is 2/3 of what Somerset West and Taunton's council tax base was back then for a wider area and wider services. We're going to make some big decisions. We're having to give up more time. We've got more working groups. And I think it allows people to be able to partake. And if you've got the ability not to take it, because you've got the funds in your life not to have to take it and do so, that can be a personal choice, but it doesn't stop then the rest of us partaking and representing our residents.
Councillor Rebecca Hughes, then Councillor Steindl, and then Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I really appreciate it. It's a very, very long time and we've having it in the budget needs to be seriously considered. However, this is an independent report. It's completely normal for a town council of our size to have some kind of allowance. We would be an anomaly if we didn't. This is an oversight for it not being used in the first place. So it should have been regularly. That's just correcting it. And I think it's really important that we don't put any pressure on any councillors here to take or not to take the money. It should be agreed to this. No one should be made to feel in any way guilty for accepting an allowance, which is a perfectly normal thing to have. I think it's really important that we talk positively about this so that nobody feels any undue pressure to not take it where it could actually make a difference to them. When we put in an enormous amount of hours through the main council meeting, through committee meetings, through working groups, and dealing with our constituents, it's actually a very labour-intensive job that we are doing. The district councils were paid, Somerset councillors are paid at this age. They have a significantly some of money that is given to them for the hard work that they do. It was for a small council, a parish council, but it is still normal to receive an allowance, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it.
Thank you. Councillor Steindl.
Thank you. I'd sort of like to back up what Councillor Ellis has said. I think under the current circumstances, I'd have real concerns as to what this looks like to the public. We're asking them to pay a lot of council tax, yet then with the suddenly taking an allowance. I know, yes, that other councils do take allowances and allowances are in place in other situations. Given the current circumstances, I think time would be available. Now, everybody within the current town council took on this role voluntarily. I second it. I don't want an allowance, and I know that can be my choice. Expenditures, yes, I totally agree with you, because there shouldn't be a barrier, whether it's taxes, whether it's to get somebody to a meeting or post of going somewhere, but to actually expect people to be given an allowance. Sometimes you could then say, well, does that necessarily attract the right people, or somebody do it for money? And I think under current circumstances, it would be best to have it as an expenditure, expenses situation rather than an allowance.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm slightly concerned because I know some people in this room or not in this room at the moment do need that money. I know some people, if they get it, they'll lose it by it. I'm not going to myself. I was lucky enough that I worked all my life and I paid my taxes and I took out protection when I got old like I am now. I honestly believe that every council should take it. And that wasn't the reason I was going to speak. The reason I want to speak, Mr. Mayor, if I take it, but want it put into a charity organisation, I'm allowed to do that in time. And other councils do it. And someone at Wellington has actually done that. Is that am I quite right in thinking I can do that?
I might take advice from the officers.
Thank you. So looking into that, I know we did swap and then did give this to charities done through the payroll system, but I don't know whether we'd be able to do that. Yeah, okay. It would have to, actually, it would have to then go to you, and then what you do with this is rather than us paying directly to the charity on your behalf.
Yes, I think that makes sense. I mean, it would have to be paid to you. You how you use that money. Of course, once it's in your, it's up to you how you spend it. Ali, and then Tom.
Just wanted to mention about the expenses, or the fact there isn't an expenses line. If you wanted to create an expenses pot, you can agree the amount tonight for that pot, and we could revisit the expenses policy if we needed to make it fit the purpose, to make sure that that is also there is room in the budget to move that around if that's needed.
Tom. Speaker.
Thank you. This is one of those topics where it is a difficult one because there's never a good time to introduce members allowance. And I think we'll sit here this time next year and there will be a series of reasons why it'd be a bad thing to introduce members allowance. There's always a reason why it's a bad time. But I think we need to understand what the members allowance is enabling, and that's enabling participation around the table. And that needs to start, in my view, today, and we need to set the precedent for that for the future. Politics uses independent panels for a reason, because they're independent people to give the best possible advice about what they think is right for that particular authority. And that's what's happened. The process has been followed, the independent panel has been appointed, they've come up with their conclusions. None of us around the table been involved in that. They've come up with totally independently, and I'm comfortable with the conclusions that those people and those experts have come up with. And I will happily defend that to anyone, given the amount of time, energy and responsibility that this role now has, especially moving forward next budget. So I really hope that members around the table think about the precedent we've set in, that we're following the independent advice to councillors, and really making sure that we're enabling participation, and not just those of us around the table staying, but anyone else out there enacting some change and standing for election to this council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Toombs, and then Councillor Fernandez.
Just with that, it's an odd position to be, but I kind of agree with the allowance in principle, but I'm lucky enough to not have to take it, so I'm just making to my position.
Councillor Fernandez.
I was just writing something down to don't get it. Yes, I mean, it's in the past, I think I've always been hesitant about defence allowances, but obviously now we've got the independent review. It puts it to a slightly different footing. I also agree with that Amber raised as well, because I think there's a lot of saying put in there about, making it a worthwhile thing to do. And there's all, you're never going to go away from the fact in some points that the monetary aspect of this is important. And I think you have to recognise that. And I think the one thing I was just going to ask is, I think the key is you don't have to take the allowance if you don't want to. And I think you as a councillor, the principals can actually say, actually, that the allowance has been suggested by the panel, but I choose not to take it. And I think that is that option there. The one thing I wanted to ask, if the members don't take the allowance, what happens to their allowance? Does it go into a pot, or is that something that, I don't know, could go to charity? I'm just thinking about, that particularly, if they don't take the allowance, if it builds up into a pot, then is there something worthwhile that you can be used for?
Thank you. I think the question about the charity, you answered that one. I think you paid it yourself, what you did with that money. But other than that, what would happen to money not taken?
Be up to you to decide what to do with that money. So it could be via to another budget, or it could be to a project or whatever you wanted to do. But if you wanted to give it to charity individually, it would be need to pay to you and then you to do what you wish to do with it.
Councillor Lister, then Councillor Smith-Bowles.
Would it be a matter of record if you did or didn't take the allowance? Because I think that's what in my mind creates a problem itself, because then some people have, some people haven't, as Christian said, some people need it. And so my wish to my people to be as a public vote on face of some people need it. Just so that we're all in together.
The answer to that, Councillor says yes, it will. It gets published on the website. Councillor Smith-Roberts, thank you, Councillor Tyne.
I wanted to clarify two things. The Joint Independent Remuneration Panel already allocates 20% of our time as voluntary. I thought when they go out and do all council reviews, and I right in that understanding, they believe that a certain amount of time is given on a voluntary basis. I think they told me that when they've interviewed me before, not for this allowance, just to clarify, but in other allowances where they how time spent. And then just in relation to what was said in relation to not taking the allowance, I guess, Fanny, what you would say is that it would show as an underspend in our outturn report. So we wouldn't need to make a decision in year. It would be in the following year that an outturn will be underspent, and we can then do what we like with that underspend should the rest of the council make an underspend.
Yes.
Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought we ought to know that our sister town, Bridgewater, has just voted a similar amount for themselves. So we're not doing something out unusual. We're doing something responsible. As I said, it's up to us if we want to take the money or give it to us and do it for us, we can do what we want.
Okay, I think, do we have any more comments from people? Any press on comments? Nothing, just to advocate, Councillor Smith. I think, as councillors, we put a lot of time into our work here. I mean, just 4 council meetings alone adds up to about 50 hours a year. So, and then you've got all your casework, all the phone calls you make, all the journeys you make. So, I don't think it's unusual that we are given some allowance for that and some remuneration. And so we are to approve the framework. Yeah. So approve the framework scheme that's been presented to us. Do I have a proposer? Maybe Councillor Packard Hughes. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Right, all those in favour of the what do you call it, approved framework scheme? All those in favour of the framework scheme, please raise your hands now. All those voting against? Anyone abstaining? Right, that has carried. Thank you very much. Right, item 9.
Registering parents to pass and then do the recommendations.
Thought it was helpful. Consider things and recommendations. Okay, so we need to do the recommendation.
Consider via budget on 9 as well.
All the expenses. Okay, so number 5. Can you just explain quickly what that is to members?
Sorry, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So obviously there's existing members expenses policy, and the point highlighted that there isn't the budget amount allocated there for next year. This year was set at 1,000, wasn't it, at September meeting? So I didn't know whether you wanted to take this opportunity and decide to wire a similar amount for another suggestion tonight, and then make a recommendation or suggestion to review the members of expenses policy in the light of approving the framework scheme and the recommendations looking at their remuneration.
So to recommend propose that we recommend the department.
Yes, and the recommendations of the independent panel. So I think you've just approved the framework scheme, and then I think that's the first step of the recommendation, and then the second step is the recommendation to the panel, and then the final amount, and then to review whether it's going to policy. So I think that's
Right, okay, so the next thing is to recommend the remuneration, yeah, and to recommend the findings and to allocate us the £7,000. In that case, do I have a proposal? Thank you.
you're doing one at a time.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Scott. So all those in favour of the recommendations of the panel, please raise your hands now. All those wishing to vote against? And we are voting for the amendments. Yes. So voting against? 3. And abstaining? Thank you very much. And then the recommendation of the VAR. So we need to propose budget, and that's from £1,000. We need to discuss that. Okay, so there is a VAR amount that we can allocate for additional expenses to councillors. It's currently set at £1,000 this year. Are we happy with the £1,000, or do we wish to raise it? Have any comments from the floor? Councillor Smith-Roberts?
I'm really comfortable with this staying as it is at the moment, and so that we can work that through. I think it's important to still have expenses, because I think the allowance is about us being remunerated for the time that we give, but the expenses are there so that for those that need it, such as using it for taxis or other means to get here, it's then on top of that to stop, to be able, to allow them to be able to continue the role.
Councillor Deacon?
Just said the budget allocates amount of £30,000, and I think Sally said that 19 councillors allowed about that, which is £28,500. So I would suggest that we buy 1,500. No, that's not right.
So there's an extra £50 in the remuneration report, which you just agreed, so it's 1,550.
Okay, fine.
Times 19 is 29,450. So there is, so some of that would need to be moved across to the mayors to make that 3,100. So there is a little bit spare, but we can find some from somewhere else to create the £1,000 if that's what you need to bring budget then.
Any other further comments, or are we happy to stick with £1,000? Okay, so this is an additional expenses account to allow access to meetings. This is to allow, so in addition to normal expenses and normal allowances. So do I have a proposer that we set the bar amount at £1,000? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strauss. All those in favour of this recommendation, please raise their hands. That's unanimous. Right. I might have to move on. Oh, thank you. So, item number 8. This is the play equipment policy written by Craig Stone. So I can introduce Craig Stone to deliver this report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. So I've done some work on creating a play and gym equipment policy for members to consider. Just to offer you some background, obviously the town council have a duty to provide play equipment within its parks open spaces to challenge and develop a range of skills of people and to encourage people to spend more time outdoors, improving their health and well-being. So the purpose of the policy is to produce a framework for responsible management of play equipment within the town's public spaces. The town council's aim through the policy is to support the repair, replacement and purchase of the play equipment to ensure that the play equipment challenges and develops people of all abilities. So the policy will ensure our community voice is heard, ensure that the play equipment challenges and develops young people's skills and abilities, and to ensure that there is accessible play values to support an inclusive environment. So if I just jump to the recommendations there, members can consider the approval of the play equipment policy. There's also a second point that's been added.
for members to consider the appointment of a specialist consultant to support the town council's ambitions for making its parks more inclusive and accessible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I think that last point, I think it's quite useful because everyone did a bit of a census of our parks towards them just to have a look at how much fully accessible equipment there is. I think it's really useful that we get an report to guide us on how we can improve our services in all of these parks. Right, I have no idea if you put the hands up first, so I'm going to go to Councillor Tani, Provincini, Smith Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. On the second part of it, there's nothing to say that we're going to get someone like Rosper in to check our equipment. An organisation similar to that, because it covers us for accidents.
Thank you, Chester. I believe our town wardens are now trained to.
So the Rosper play inspections are carried out annually by Somerset Council. There are weekly visual inspections, then monthly inspections, and then an annual kind of robust inspection where they will actually play with the equipment and test its durability.
Sorry, Dave, can I just
one that job.
That began in the names of the policy should be in there, so that's what we. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just say that even though Somerset are doing this at the moment, that's because it's part of the service agreement, but it's very much our plan to have that in the house.
Councillor Pachuli.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, good policy. I've got sort of a question really, which is sort of an offshoot of this, because obviously we have a town council area, and not all of the play parks currently within the area are under the town council and still remain under Somerset Council. So if our taxpayers are paying the council tax, some of the parks in Maidenbrook, for instance, are over 20 years old. How do we go about bringing parity across the board and bringing those parks in so they can be considered for refurbishment? Because obviously it doesn't look like they're going to be considered anytime soon.
That is something that will be discussed further, but not on the agenda tonight. Yes, so we're just looking at the play policy of the parks that we do contain and maintain. And Councillor Smith Roberts, then Councillor Ellis.
My question is in relation to the policy, because I think it's a really good start for what we want to do. I think that it's the beginning of its journey, and the reason that I say that is that it would be good to, in future, think about the type of play parks that we actually want, and to look at national guidance around what does play mean for children, because I think that has evolved. If you look at a child's nursery or schooling journey now, the way that they play seem very different to how I played. So things like Montessori is a real big way that younger children now play, and how they interact with the natural environment is something. And I want to say the national organisation, but what does that look like? However, in looking at how do we maintain our current 1980s, 1990s play equipment, I think this is a good start there. What I would like to know is, one, it talks about maintenance. I think that's good when it comes to whether there's defect. One of the things, unless I've missed it, and you can correct me on this, is about going out and actually just painting our play equipment, having a rolling programme of play equipment that we currently own, and look to just give it a lick of primary colours so that it just looks better than it does today. And I think that is something that's easily done, and I don't see that documented here. So it might be that's more of an operational thing. It would be good to see how we can have a rolling programme of that. Because it's all well good talking about new equipment, but when new equipment costs thousands of pounds, our budget isn't going to stretch too much, but there is something that we can do. The other thing is in relation to perhaps start documenting the training that our town warden has, and what is the plan to get them to a place for April 2025, not to take on a ROSPAR or their health and safety executive training, but around that wider piece of work around our ambition to have brightly coloured play equipment.
Thank you. You want to?
Yeah, I can, Mr. Councillor, thank you. Really good point about guidance and policies that come from other external organisations about how play is adapting and developing for the future. And I think our policy will be pretty much a kind of working document. So when there's some real significant updates that come out, that it'd be really important to make sure that that's reflected in the policy and kept up to date. With regards to painting play equipment, within the service growth and improvement plan for our parks and open spaces, our ambition is to ensure that our parks are looking really well kept, and that will include painting equipment that looks pretty old, back 1980s. But yeah, so there are ambitions to improve the appearance of our play parks by, giving them a look, etc. In terms of documenting training for the town warden, that is done at the moment, but it'd be really, really good to just build on that and actually, as you say, have some ambitions to continually improve our parks regarding accessibility and what to look for in terms of future needs. Thank you.
Councillor Solly?
I'd also like to say, going forward, that if there is any parts within the parks that anything needs to be looked over, whether it's grooming or anything, I'm always, I'm not for anybody asking me if they want me to come see the site to see if it can be repaired or fixed, and you can make it look light on the back, buying brand new bit of equipment that's still safe and, take you on the offer.
I believe that's Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, it's a great start, Craig. Well done on your work on this, and I hope you don't. But my only thing is about recommendation 2. Are you literally asking us now to commit? This is consider the equipment expense. You are asking for an in-principle decision about whether we should appoint a specialist consultant to advise us. And will that then come back at a later date? Just so I know, or is there a specific amount that we spend this year on this that I'm not? I just wanted a bit of clarification on that, because it might be something we need to do, but I want to know where's the budget for it and how does it sit within the broader strategy in terms of improvements. Like, Galvington Lane, that's this one, screaming out for some. No.
Interested in the inclusive side of things. So you can obviously get picnic benches which are wheelchair accessible as well, which I don't think we have many of those. So if it could be included, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clark. Yes, at the moment we're playing gym, but I suppose we can include all items that we find in a park for the policy towards all items. Are there any other comments, any pressing comments that we wish to make? So I believe we've got 2 things to do here. First of all, we're going to approve the play policy that's been written by Craig. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Simon, Councillor Lester. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Clark. All those in favour of the policy written by unanimous. Great, lovely. Then, of course, there's the members to consider approval of something to do. There's a second.
Isn't the second motion?
I thought we were going to approve.
Members to consider the appointment of specialists and functions for the ambitions.
Yeah. So, sorry, can you repeat the wording of that? That's quite good.
Members to consider the appointment of a specialist consultant to support the town council. Oh, do you want me to say it? Members to consider the appointment of a specialist consultant to support the town council's ambition for making its parks more inclusive and accessible.
Okay. Do I have a proposer for this? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. We've got a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Staple. All those in favour of us adopting that? That's unanimous. So item 10, Greenway recreational ground slide replacement. This is Taken this back in December, got spent in January, but then moved on to February. I just hand back to Chris on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, yeah, the Greenway recreational ground slide replacement. So members are to consider the options for the replacement piece of play equipment for the slide in the kindergarten area, Greenway recreational ground. If I just reflect on when this report previously came to the full council, there were a couple of questions that were presented. And for the benefit of anonymity regarding suppliers, I've used company A, company B, and company C in question here. So at December's full council meeting, the operations and events manager returns with answers to a few questions that were presented during that meeting. Company B's play equipment is often breaking and becomes unusable. The operations and events manager spoke to the street senior and spaces manager at Somerset Council to ask this following question. Of all the play equipment within our parks and open spaces, and looking back over 12 months, which supplier of equipment has required most maintenance? The response was company B. The reason being is that the majority of play equipment has been provided by company B. As they are a good supplier, therefore maintenance and issues are most common with company B over other companies. It was also noted that play equipment with moving parts require more maintenance and therefore are more prone to breaking compared to those with non-moving parts. So following a short engagement exercise by Councillor McDonald, there are 4 pieces of play equipment included as part of the original engagement exercise, which did include an accessible piece of play equipment, slide, picnic bench, and a balance circuit. The outcome from the engagement exercise was the balance circuit, which offered 11 play values and includes inclusive and accessible play values as part of the circuit. So just before you go through the options on the report, I just would like to remind you that the slide currently in Greenway Rec has been out of action for 7 months now. Reputationally, it would be really good if we're able to make a decision. In the report, you do have a complete offer of accessible and inclusive pieces, and I think it's important to consider the feedback that was provided by Councillor Nick O'Donnell following their engagement exercise and the responses that were received. The balance circuit remains the preferred option from the engagement exercise and includes inclusive play values. And that this piece of play equipment is to be sited within the kindergarten area of Taunton Green recreational ground, designed for 0 to 5-year-olds. Nick, would you like to, Councillor O'Donnell, would you like to add any?
Yeah. Okay, yes, thank you for that, Craig, and thank you for all the work that you've done on this. It's been involved. I'd just like to come back with one thing in the report, in that it says following a short consultation. Just to give you a little bit more information about the consultation. It was, yes, I used the Friends of Greenway Facebook page, put it on there, but I also went to all the toddler groups within the area. I met with parents of those toddler groups. I showed them the option, I discussed it with them. I left the options with them so that, because I only saw the parents on that particular day, so the people who ran the toddler groups in the nurseries, and I only identified toddler groups of children who were of the age to use at kindergarten, preschool area. So I did that. I also put up all 4 options. I stapled them to the fence around the slide. So it was all in public view. All 4 options were on display. My details, the council website, details of the council website were put there. My contact details were put there. And the whole thing was left there for 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, people had the opportunity to contact me. The majority of contact came through the Facebook page. As you see, it's 37 votes for the balance circuit. I did receive 5 emails from just the notices I put out to toddler groups and on the park. 3 of those were for the balance circuit and 2 were for a replacement slide. So I do feel I really tried my very best to engage with as many people as possible and the relevant people as possible on this. So I do feel that the response is they would like a balance circuit. I did take the points that were made about accessibility, and you know, I would like also to perhaps, if we do go for the, well, I would like to recommend that you do vote for the balance circuit, which is what residents of Low Barton have indicated they would prefer. But I'm happy to go with the cheap option and look at replacing one of the swings with a more fully accessible swing. We've got in that same area, it's 2 swings, 2 little buttons, not button swings, so those kind of children's swings, all encased cages, and but we could replace one of those with that fully accessible bucket swing. Lovely have at Linford Park, with that. So that's my comments on how the consultation was run. So Councillor Smith-Roberts and then Councillor Ficini.
I just need to clarify and remember what we discussed at the last meeting, and I don't know whether Nick or Craig, you can assist with this. I think my understanding was that at present there isn't any accessible play equipment in that park. So if there isn't any accessible play equipment in the park, I don't know whether you would get responses from people who need accessible equipment when asking about the park, because they know not to use it because the equipment isn't there, if I've understood correctly. So I think it's really, I totally appreciate the views of those that came forward, but I also think that you don't then get a full picture because you don't have the equipment there for those that can't use it. But I could be wrong in my understanding of that. So for me, I would love to replace the play equipment, but I would love to see something that is there for both accessibility and those who, for both parties. I think it gives accessibility for all. And I'm trying to understand of what's in front of us, which one of those is, and I'm assuming it's option 5, which is D.
No.
No, is it
B.
Option B, which is the C.
No. It's C.
Movement. And maybe, I don't want to put Simon on the spot, but Simon has got some
I think
accessibility.
option A.
But it would be, it's trying to understand.
Option 1 A.
Which would be the one with the wooden bits that you, I'm trying to look at that picture and understand what part of that is accessible.
It's because you can get a wheelchair on.
What along?
On option 4, you're looking at option 1.
You said option 1 is the most accessible, so I'm a little bit confused as to which one on here is most accessible, which I think is option 4, which is got the springs, or alternatively, probably the trains that they're saying, but.
What was offered, so can I just come back? So first of all, I did go to toddler groups, and the toddler groups were open to all children. So that was, I mean, they could, there were children of all abilities. So they did try and actually meet the parents. So it wasn't just putting up signs on the park, where, as you might say, that's only more able, what people go to park. I did try and go to toddler groups and nurseries. Again, you know, children of all abilities will go to those groups of abilities. So, and again, on the Facebook, we made Facebook page, and that's open to all residents of the park. The options that option 3 was the one we included in our original survey. Option 4, 5, and 6 are what Craig has added for this report. So those 4, 5, and 6 weren't offered to the residents. Option 5 and 6 are very similar to the castle that's already in that play area already. So I think it would be appropriate to add 5 or 6 because it's like almost identical to the castle that's in there. So what the residents have gone for is either option 1 or 2 to plan the circuit. And in answer to your second question, I'm quite happy for us to recommend option 1, which is the cheaper version, and then use additional money to put in a fully accessible swing to replace one of the ones. At the moment, we only have 8 swings in there. Councillor Clark, and then Councillor Ficini, and then Councillor Tully.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on Councillor Robert Smith, sorry. With the accessibility side, I mean, the only option there I see, fully accessible is the seesaw option before, which is one I would fully support, because to me it looks amazing. That is something you can get a wheelchair fully on. A wheelchair user can get on there themselves, where it's like a swing, you're suggesting they still need support. This is totally independent. The others, I don't see how they're accessible, especially to a wheelchair user or someone with mobility issues in any way, I'm afraid. Apart from the above board and the other drawing channel there. Yeah, just that the option 4 to me is something which is completely fully accessible and would help with independence.
Councillor Ficini?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to fully support the last 2 speakers, I'm struggling. Is there some sort of difference between what we call inclusive and sort of DDA compliant? Because inclusive implies that it's for everybody, which in actual fact it's not, because there's no space for a wheelchair to use it. But they're obviously calling DDA compliant as for a disabled wheelchair. So kind of there's a mixed message there completely. At the last time this came up, I thought we agreed that we would only install play equipment that was DDA compliant, that met everybody's group. So there would be an area specifically that would be accessible for all. And I'm not too sure how this option A now goes with what we've just voted on the previous policy in terms of replacing play equipment, because option A isn't accessible to anyone with a disability. So it can't be option A, because we just surely voted on something previously at the last item that said we would install equipment that is for everybody. So at the last meeting we said we would only install things that everybody has access to. Number 8 doesn't do that, so I can't see how we can approve number A.
And policy we just approved stated that we would offer fully DDA or fully accessible equipment as one of the choices in saying that everybody's equipment would be.
Right, I explicitly remember the last time this came up to council that we agreed that we would install, if we are going to replace the park, they're looking at equipment for everybody to be able to use, not just a certain section of society.
I believe at the December meeting, we agreed to move the debate back a month. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, just to read the resolution from the December minutes. So items were deferred to the January meeting to enable the operations and events manager to look at the questions raised on maintenance and accessibility options.
I think that's not right. So they've been agreed that we would only install that equipment. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must admit, option 4 seems the right thing as far as I'm concerned, but it shows to be on grass. Now, I thought that up to a certain age, it had to be on safety services. And it is the safety services included in this price. It seems like a lot cheap. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Tully. So the quotes that we've got here are estimates. I will check with the supplier, but the surfacing would be part of the assessment as part of the installation process.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair. I've been warning, it's very expensive. The safety services, I know that.
Councillor Deacon.
Chair, comment and then a question. I also think that option 4 is the one that's strongly sitting here. I think I can understand that the responses to the consultation may have been for another choice, although it's worth noting this one wasn't included in the consultation. But that would always be the case because in the population at large, there are fewer people who need that type of equipment than the other type. So you will always see consultation responses at another level because that's the way that we make up society. I think our job is to make sure that we give those people a voice beyond others because they're smaller in numbers. So I think for that reason, to really have this is the first big piece of equipment we're going to put into Town Council, we should set the precedent, be really good on it, but we have an intention to make our parks fully accessible. And I think option 4 is the only piece of equipment that does that. I just wondered what budget we had for this, what was the number we were going to be working to for this particular space, please?
So the budget to be replaced play will come from the service growth and improvement plan. So there's an allocation to parks and open spaces. So the cost for a replacement piece would come from the parks area of the service growth and improvement plan. I don't have a specific value on that. No. Okay. I don't want us to just I know we see a bit more work on the exact figures that if we did option 4 is the preferred one. But if we were willing, or we may be willing to spend a bit more, it'd be just with the space we've got there and another piece that we could fit in with it at the same time. If we're going to put something in, let's make it really good, I think. So I'm just maybe look at that in all steps as well.
Councillor Ernest and Councillor Clark.
I think this one's a bit tricky. I think if we consulted residents, I'm just a bit confused about just saying, oh, well, you know, you're not want anyone for this, but we're just setting that aside. The ideal scenario would be we put in what they ask for the balance fee. Not every single equipment is going to be accessible or inclusive of absolutely everybody, but we do need more accessible options, especially for kids who are wheelchair users. DDA compliant is there's no DDA anymore, it's replaced by the Equality Act. But I do think we need to have another strategic view on this, rather than just sort of, oh, let's pop this here. But I think we've got, I think it's important that we do put something in assessment this time, but it kind of depends on us saying, right, residents wanted this, fine, and then this thing looks amazing, the seesaw looks absolutely crap. And I'm sure people do travel around to, I'm not sure maybe that's not the best location for it, but anyway, it would be nice to be able to do both, but we've got to be really careful in the future of like really defining about play equipment and, you know, looking at existing provision and saying what a sort of, you know, optimal inclusive, you know, playground looks like for all different ages and whatnot. So can we do both? Can we have an element of both? Could we got money in the budget? We did the company A, that's for 20k, and then the seesaw or 18, so that would be 30. Do we have it in this year's budget? We do.
Okay, so just, I mean, you do bring up a point there. I mean, okay. Okay.
Yes, you've got money to do it.
So, yes, thank you, Councillor. I think that is quite an important point there. I mean, the local community were engaged in good faith, and this is what they have asked for. I think it's difficult for us to go back and just say, tough, just getting this. I also want to emphasise that this is for a preschool area. This is for children from 6 months to 4 years old. Looking at that balance fee, looking at the ages of the children, I'm not entirely sure it's would quite fit. I mean, I think that's more perfect outside the children's area. I'll be happy with Councillor Ellis's recommendation. Councillor Lester, Councillor Smith-Roberts, and then Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, whilst I appreciate that there's money in the budget to do these things, as a percentage, if we're going to be looking at spending money on replacing equipment and ground, what as a percentage of the total budget for the year would this represent? That we just sort of growing the whole lot in 1 year kind of thing.
So So in the service improvement plan, there was 175,000 put aside for new replacing play equipment. But we've also got some underspending in our maintenance. So there is some money there that we use to put in replacements. And we've also got Section 106 money that's available to us, which we're actively looking at for parts and new equipment as well. So I don't have that figure in terms of the percentage, but there is pots that we could do about.
I would expect. I'm just thinking in terms of you the similar concept of budget divided by parks. And if you do budget divided by parks, then you've got to be fair and equal about how we distribute the funds around the entire town. So just understanding at that level what we have left, and how far we're going to spread it, that we could at a top level.
Councillor Smith.
Councillor Levin slightly alluded to it, because I think I've got a little bit of concerns and need to take a step back and up. But we seem to not have a strategic plan as to what it is that we want to do across all of our parks, the equitable situation that we need to do, and the money that we have to spend. We're responding to the fact that a consultation has happened in a local area. And again, I think we need to have a strategic discussion on whether that happens in the future as to what that looks like, because otherwise, again, it won't be fair and equitable, because we could spend £38,000 this evening, but then I could wear my Black and Holloway hat and go, so am I having £38,000 in Black and Holloway? And am I going to go out and do a survey? And is that right for that area? So I'm not saying that what's happened is wrong. I'm just saying that we need to think strategically when we've got multiple budgets at play and multiple demands across those budgets. So for me, I think there's a piece of work for communities to do, or a future committee to look at that, so that we can look at our total spend the next year and start allocating accordingly a rolling plan alongside the maintenance. And I think for this evening, I would rather take a decision, I think, for an accessible piece of equipment, but for then it to be looked at as to whether further equipment could be put in that park that sits alongside that consultation. But I worry about sanctioning £38,000 this evening, about what that looks like for the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Councillor Becker-Hughes.
Response to comments about say whether this woman P is appropriate for kindergarten. It's practically identical to one that's in the French wing and is fully appropriate for kids age, say 3 to 6 years old.
Is it actually within a contained?
It's specifically with the kindergarten area of French rather than the older children's wing.
Councillor Fernandez, indeed.
Yeah, I think for posting the meeting, I think it's lots of Councillor Ross has alluded to, there's lots of different threads going on here. I think the purpose of this meeting tonight, we've got to make a decision about this particular agenda item. And I think there's a whole big discussion about accessible play equipment, how we introduce it gradually into play equipment. I mean, there is nothing, if there is wiggle room in budget, then obviously, you've got that option that the residents have actually had to go for. But then maybe one of the swings that's in that, we could upgrade it and actually put an accessible swing in there for a lesser cost. Is pricing it up and having a look. But maybe to start, just having a look at that in that particular part. And then, as everybody else has said, having that further discussion about gradually putting in accessible equipment in all of our parks as a rolling programme.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, we have just agreed our policy, which does outline how we engage. I mean, I think when a piece of equipment becomes defunct and needs to be replaced, I do feel residents should have some say on what gets replaced. And of course, we have just agreed to adopt an agency, outside agency, to take an audit and produce recommendations on how we can improve our marks throughout the whole content. And I think that'd be a good strategy for us to take on board. So, Councillor Stathorpe, then Councillor Clark, then Councillor Deacon.
I think you have to be so careful with parks and how much expenditure and you need to do one park before we actually allow people the parks. And you can end up with a bit of parking if you're not careful. We've suffered from it already in the pollution control area. And you know, there's a new park built control recently, which is, I think, £100,000 of the park requirement. Yeah, exactly. And you can imagine what the residents in Portugal want. They want that park, and we don't have that money. You just say, sadly, how much money we have in total. That's going to go across how many parks? 15? 13, 14 parks, and then you put parks that are six. We've got to remember this is council taxpayers' money for the area. So we've got to be careful, we're not seeing to be created on a park or another. I know it's unfair or something's replacing one piece of the equipment at a time, you can justify it, but if somebody through really smart new bits and kept here and the rest of the world in the phone call saying, where's ours? And if it's 40 grand for 2 weeks of the kit, plus 13. So it's kind of basic maths.
Just a bit about accessibility again, specifically for this, whichever play equipment is used, it's the lead up to it, so the footpath or whatever is actually to it and the surface it's on. Because I've seen some matting before where it's all holes in it, which if you've got sticks you use to walk with, obviously they can get caught in a hole, which is really unsuitable. I don't know if that's still used, that's in some older parks I've seen. But yeah, so rather than just being in the middle of grass, I'm not sure where this bit's going to be. Having a pathway leading to the bits of the things. So if you're in a wheelchair, you have to go over muddy grass. Or you want to get stuck, and it makes it rather hard.
Councillor Teacher.
Thank you. I think I know that it feels like Greenwood Park's taking a bit of a grid for reasons, but I think it's just because we're finding a way about how we manage this moving forward. So I think that's why we're having this kind of conversation. I kind of see the output of that review that we've agreed to principle from Green's item. I think it's this kind of map of Taunton that maps all where our parks are. It highlights where there's accessible equipment already, and I don't know probably accessible equipment, not all, somewhat available, like probably accessible, but also maps on in each area. You kind of categorize the equipment, that which needs a bit of pain, that which needs a repair and something fixed, and that which needs replacing. And I think once we've got that mapped out, and the other thing I would add in, we could agree this alongside that piece of work, is also like to between works is a really fair one, a good one, is map all the parts that we currently have an operating board, we should. Because they're not going to be done something else in the foreseeable future. And my personal view is that we can build a team who can be scaled to take on those additional marks, actually. So I think you also highlight those on that. I'm thanking this, but then, Craig, I think that then gives you the map of, okay, here are the priority areas where we've got accessibility kind of areas dark, so there's nothing. So we need to focus on that area against some kicking. I think it will give us the plan. I think that the moment we're lacking the tools to build the plan, and therefore making a decision in isolation, and I think that's the bit that's uncomfortable. If we can see that, then we make a decision go, oh fine, okay, Greenwood Park doesn't actually need any accessibility. This or there is a gap, and then we make a far more informed decision. So I think we've probably done there's a little bit more of the strategic work we need to do to then be able to make us make the decision with confidence, I think.
Councillor Sy.
Yes, in my opinion, I feel the equipment that these laws are really important, and I feel we should carry and need to go on. So I don't want to get too excited at the beginning and cut at the end. I think all the equipment this evening we decided it's perfect.
Right. Okay, so members consider options. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the residents did ask for a balanced circuit by overwhelmingly. I do feel that we should have the opportunity to give the residents what they have asked for. I think it's difficult to go against them. They were engaged in good faith. I'm happy to go with option 2 and spend a little bit more money on replacing the screen. So I think we may have discussed into the long grass. So I shall give Councillor Ficini and state one last.
Sorry, Chair, I'm really just trying to be clear, but I really believe the point about having the overall arching vision and plan before we make decisions. So I would suggest that we do push it back until we actually have that consultation that comes back from consultancy work come through. So we can actually feel we can make a more comfortable decision about what work is actually required from the whole piece and not just one specific part.
The only thing I'll say is that this slide was condemned back in August. We've already pushed it back from December and we want to push it back again. The residents were engaged, they gave their preference. All the residents in that part going to see is a piece of play equipment for up to a year at this rate. I'm not sure how the council looks, what kind of advert that is from the council there. Councillor Staple?
One, I think that the residents haven't shown that last option, I haven't seen. But exactly, that's going to be a practical matter. Let me say that's also an option, which may actually be a situation we understand actually does need something exclusive for all. That we get then board, all I'm going to understand is can we actually see what balance circuit would like with accessible and accessible art to it? Because obviously, if the good problem is accessible swim park, and that then becomes a more accessible piece of equipment for everyone. So those two options, either way, helping people, residents, but also helping our decision making process with another piece of equipment.
Councillor Smith-Roberts?
I think if we were to go with what Judy said, I think it would also be good to reach out to people like Taunton Opportunity Together, opportunity group like the COG, and like occupational therapist or what must go to the pediatric unit, just to say, you know, there's other people without our knowledge here have knowledge around what is good for children with accessibility. Actually, no, it's not just for children and younger ages. If you took that piece of disability equipment, it would be accessible for adults with disability, and therefore it would be a wider inclusion. I know this is going into a kindergarten area, but it would widen the scope of accessibility to access for multiple different people.
I think it can still Hughes.
Yeah. As we just said, I think it needs to be targeted focus group. If you're going to do a survey, you can't just rely on people within themselves all to answer it if you're trying to get information about a particular demographic or niche and also not occupying the area in which you're involved in the survey. So going out to those groups is really important to get information. And I don't think it's particularly relevant to quote the survey because stakeholders, you know, it's a worthwhile thing to do. But they weren't given the options that are in front of us, so we can't use that survey because those people who were consulted weren't given these same options, and had they been, they may well have chosen different things.
And Councillor Fowler?
Thank you. Yes, based on what's said, previous two speakers, I'd like to second Councillor Ficini's proposal for deferment again until we get this wider strategy and also do further consultations with other groups so we can get a good idea of what we actually do want rather than just picking something else. Piece by piece every time that something comes up.
There is also part of this proposal that we the communities. I mean, again, do we want, we know the strategy and come back to full council, but when it comes to individuals, we wanted to always come to full council, or we have the community. community council next week, we're going to see this. So, councillor Clark and councillor Deacon.
I was just going to add, using different organisations, but just about Selworthy into there, because they're obviously the biggest, especially in school. And yes, obviously Tom as well, because they start the very young children, but also Selworthy has a huge wealth of knowledge in the parents of Selworthy. They're probably one of the best people to actually ask things.
I think that the strategic piece, I think, is actually increasingly important. I think it's essential that we get that done as soon as possible. And I know that the team are really interested. I think if we've got room in our service growth improvement plan, we should expedite that, get someone in to come and do it for us and deliver a really good strategic ambition. So that when our budget kicks in from April, we've got the plan in front of us. I think we should spend this time now building that plan so that we can really get the ground running. So I don't think that network necessarily needs to sit on our team. I think there's space in there. Let's bring in an expert to come and do the heavy lifting for us, make it happen quickly, get to a really, really good output that the Ukraine and the teams then just go deliver against that. And I think one of my stipulations then is they should deliver with that their recommended action plan. But they should both, they do a review and a recommended action plan. I think actually personally, I think actually the scope. So they just literally give you a document, you go, okay, fine, well, we've got a town water board, we've got that side one. We're going to go roll it out and go and tweak things on there. I think that's really, really quick, and I think Nick, if you can get that right, your resident period won't wait that long, because we can make sure that that particular one is bottom to the top of the list, so on the first one to get solved, because of the waiting, and then work with the plan. But I just think until we've got that strategic view, and actually once we agree that's council, probably individual equipment decisions can be made by committee, because we agree the overall plan and view. So I just think that is the key to unlocking a lot of this conversation.
By committee, the communities.
Yeah, who's going to be the current years, yeah.
Councillor Flynns.
It's just a thought, it's just something that's just coming back in because it's almost study. The forthcoming community review that we are hoping to get from SAC, is that something that they could look at as a piece of work within that? Because obviously we can tailor that community review to what we would like. And because it's going across, we could make it ward-wide. I wanted that first. Ward-wide, then obviously, it can go all the through the wards asking, in those wards what they would like to see in their departments and accessibility itself. Maybe it's something that we can put in as part of that community review. And the nice thing about community review is it's not costing us anything, which is the other plus point. So maybe that's something I know that we can talk about this on the community services committee, but obviously it's a piece of work that we probably outside of that across the board.
Okay. So this report recommendation is that we can delegate orders to the community services committee. You have to do that. It's one of the other recommendations on this report here. Rather was bringing back a favour to the full council meeting. I have a proposal for that. Thank you. Second, thank you. All those in favour of that, so the consultation, the strategic, and then decisions on play equipment within plants, which sits within the community services. Okay, all those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? Right. Right. So this issue will be moved to the community services group. Oh, thank you. This issue will be moved to the community services group. And we'll wait for the forthcoming strategic. Right. It's as Councillor Fernandez has pointed out, it's 8:30. We have to suspend standing orders at 9 o'clock, don't we? So okay, right. So item 11, risk assessment review. Sally?
Really well, there's some of them have physical actions with regards to it, so there are two things here, there's a risk assessment which we've carried out, which is clearly a dynamic document which will come to on a regular basis and change and update, and there are some actions which Councillor Fairman asked, which I know you will probably into, so I'm hoping I don't need to go through those. And the other part is a policy, risk management policy went to finance and governance, which actually needs to be reviewed by you as the full council to confirm that you're happy. So it's already been reviewed by the finance and governance committee, and it's for you to review and agree with what we're doing and make sure that you're happy with it and ask any additional questions if they're not ready.
Are there any questions? Councillor Smith?
I'm just wondering for future meetings in relation to the RAG rating register, it would be good to have some target dates next to some of the actions. So if a business continuity plan needs to be created, it would be good to have some hard deadlines that we're expecting that to come by. If we don't have a business continuity plan, we're just a bit, if it doesn't happen. I also wonder if there is an ability to, I don't know, how my vote was, to use arrows to show whether that RAG rating has changed the previous report, so whether it remains static or increased or decreased, so that we can monitor continual improvement against the day.
We can do that.
Yes. Any other comments? No? In that case, can I have a proposer that it's so do you want to do it? Yes. So can I have a proposer that we adopt this risk assessment review? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fern. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Right, item 12, Development festoon lighting. Can't believe 6 months has gone by already. So, great.
Thank you, Chair. So, members are to consider the preferred company to purchase the festoon lighting solution to the former Debenhams building, North Street in Taunton, from March 2024. So there is a table under the summary of the financial implications highlighting the costs of Company A, Company B, Company C. I've highlighted in green Company B as the cheapest option for replacing those lights on the former Debenhams building. Just to let you know, the lights that are on the Debenhams building at the moment are currently on a 6-month lease to Company A. So they have obviously offered us a product to buy, costed £2,675.15 with a 6-monthly service charge of £350. Company B, £1,480.94 with no service costs, and Company C at £2,591.78 with an £85 service cost, 6-monthly service. So members are to consider both companies for purchasing and investing lighting in the Debenhams building. Thank you.
Councillor Solly and Councillor Fajee.
Most of the festoon lights, as of last week being construction, the full cost of this job, as if I was personally doing it. The price came in as I would be to do it. It came very competitive, and I think the service or what they change as and when is also cost effective. Very happy to keep doing this for the last few months being on dark green light, and actually by purchasing will actually save us about £3,000 a year towards hiring But also, just a question, from a future point, I know that this is currently 3 prices, but it's actually only 1 price to actually purchase it. So maybe for future, valuations, the say company B would need 3 prices to purchase those lots. Because at the moment we've got 2 hires and 1 purchase, so of course that purchase price is going to look like ultimately a great.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered what the expected energy bill is going to be, because I'm assuming we'll be responsible for the energy bill and what we paid over the last 6 months, or will we not responsible for that?
No, only some seconds are still paying the electricity bill.
So they're going to carry on.
Well, there's another question.
That one in, so do we have,
Do we know how long they're going to? Thank you, or is it the same? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how long they're going to be continuing to pay for the electric that's used in the town centre. It's part of the overall energy supply that's used to support the street traders and the throughout the High Street and the Fall Street area. So they pay a licence fee, so they're technically paying, I guess, or subsidising the energy costs for the lights around the former Devon's building. Oh, sorry, Dan.
These are all purchase options, aren't they?
These are all purchase options, yeah.
Yeah, so they are, sorry, they are purchase options. 2 of them have got costs for servicing, 1 of them is a local group, just so you're.
Any other comments? Should we just move on to voting? So, which option are we going to go for?
I propose option B.
You propose option B. Do I have a second for option B? Thank you, Councillor Deacon. All those in favour for option B, please raise their hands. Unanimous. Right, item 13, service the level agreement, assistance by Somerset. Hand over to Sally to update on the report.
So you've already agreed to put 10,000 of the advance budget across to Somerset, this is the by Somerset, and you asked for something that would confirm what level of detail and information that you would get in terms of your money. They have provided this service level agreement that will provide us with data for the demographic that they touched in Taunton, and how they'll provide that and how often they'll provide that, and that's all included in the service level agreement.
Councillor Furlong, Councillor Smith-Wallace.
I had read through it, and basically, yeah, the data they sort of would provide for us would be helpful for in our operations as well, for helping out, people who are struggling or have different, aspects of their life that we wouldn't normally think about. So I think this is a very good agreement we should sign to.
I've just got a query, well, I've got 2 questions. Firstly, on Appendix A, at number 1, I think it says the council shall pay a total of 15,000 to the CAS, but then it is 4 payments of £5,000. So I just want to confirm, are we paying them 15 or 20,000? In that appendix. And at first when I read it, I thought I'd quite like to see them 6 monthly in order to understand how demographics are changing. However, I think the value of the money that we pay, that might be a little too often, Stephen, but I would like to maybe have an open discussion with citizens' advice around. They are brilliant, and I've met them on numerous occasions at giving out lots of good information about how times and needs are changing. So it's whether or not how we work with them to access that. So it's not one off information point of pulling, that it helps us drive forward some of our other customers. They may just be able to hit a button and actually count, and that may help us with our other policies. So I think it's just something to consider about that relationship and how it moves throughout that annual process.
So I think that's a typo, so it's 10,000 if we're repeating, it's 10,000 for the next 3 years, rather than 15, so we'll get that amended, thank you. And with regards to information, I think in my previous roles, I've had a very good relationship with them and they're able to provide that information with us very easily. If you don't need a person, but just the information, I think they're able to without any person can do that.
Any other comments, Councillor Puccini?
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, really. I thought we agreed to do it the remainder of sort of this quadrennium, but this would indicate that it's like a 4-year deal up until 2028. Should it not be 2027? Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, can I have a proposer for this? Thank you, Councillor Strauss. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Brown. All those in favour of adopting this, please raise your hands. Okay, item 14, co-option policy. Masters with Councillor Hills for commissioning last month. We have a vacancy. If there is no election, then we have the option to fill hot. Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you set out there so this basically set out a process for, as originally we've had a casual vacancy occur, and we're in the process. Obviously, there's a notice been posted, until the 26th of February. We won't know whether we'll have to hold an election or not. If we don't, this policy sets out a fair and transparent process to be undertaken to allow the council to draw to the council onto the council.
I don't think it needs too much discussion. Any comments, Councillor Fleming?
What's the eligibility for there to be an election? Like, is there a time period where someone needs to put themselves forward, or is it just, or is it something else?
Somerset Council have been notified of the vacancy. They've published this in the local area and the parish. Local residents have until the 26th of February to write in, either by letter or email, to request an election. It requires 10 residents on the area of the Wellsprings and River Barton to write in. If they receive 10 requests, then an election will be called, probably May the 2nd, to oppose that with the police commissioners. If not, if they 10 residents don't write in, then we have the option as a council to support somebody. Mark.
Mr. Mayor, I think the councillor was asking about the eligibility as well. So I think if you go down to page 5 on the eligibility form, it sets out the statutory requirements for being a councillor. So you have to be registered as a local government director for the town. There's residency requirements and citizenship requirements that would be saying that you all have to meet to stand for this body. They would apply to a court as no as well. Thank you.
Any other questions? In that case, can I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Clark. All those in favour of this policy, please raise hands. Unanimous. Okay. Now then, for item 16 and 17, there is confidential information here. We do need to pass a motion that removes the general public. So, Councillor Fleming.
Yes, for item 16, I'm hoping that we can do that one in public, as long as we don't go into the granular detail of the news. Because I know there are people watching or want to find out what's happening.
So just in case, I think we're just certainly asking you to resolve under section 100A, Article 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public will be excluded from the item of business agenda item 1670 on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively, part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affair of any particular person, including the authority holding the information. So we need to vote ourselves the option to be able to move or suspend recording. So do I have a proposal for this? Thank you, Councillor Newman. Seconder, Councillor Sonic. All those in favour of this motion? All those voting against? No, okay. Right, so we will have the option to suspend recording and remove public, should we need to. Yeah. This point is 9 o'clock, do we need to suspend? It's not. Okay, do we vote that we suspend standing orders? Perhaps have a thank you. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Lester. All those in favour? Okay, would you all like just 5 minutes to go and get a drink? Just Councillor Lester? Okay, all right, fine. Right, so item 16, approval of list. Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an item to approve the signing and entering into the enclosed lease relating to ourselves and Wilmore allotments. Just like to place on record my thanks to members of the society who are here tonight for their hard work and working with us. And thank them for their patience as well. Not a lot to get to this point, working with us and our legal team. So thank you to them. And obviously, you recognise as a new town council, we were transferred the allotments as part of the order of vesting day. And we're governed by how we use those allotments under the various statutes that exist. And sort of proposed use will promote a relationship between our two parties for the next several years as laid out in the lease. And just in terms of obviously supporting allotments and the allotment associations, of course, with our corporate plan aspirations about having a sustainable environment and promoting and supporting those sustainable food projects. So yeah, I can commend this report to you, and any questions, happy to take them. If you want to invite the society to say.
Would you like to take some questions?
I can do, yes.
Please take. Oh, we'll do it from there actually. Might do it from there.
Well, you gave me 2 buttons, I've probably pressed the wrong number.
Oh, mine not even be switched on.
This one will be.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm grateful to Marcus and to Craig for the work that we've done together to get as far as we have this program lease. Just so that everyone is aware, the model of self-management that is adopted by this arrangement between ourselves and the council is not the commonest method of local authorities managing their allotments across the country. But in Taunton, what we've found is that actually there's a devolution of management responsibility for the allotments to the actual allotment members is the one that's been preferred historically. And has really worked quite well in the past. There have been some changes in recent years in terms of the way that that's organised. So the list which we are currently working, which actually expired on the 23rd of December, so it will was between Taunton Dean Council and Taunton Allotment Association, which was an organisation that covered various allotment sites in Taunton. Taunton Allotment Association ceased to exist in 2017. So effectively, we've been working to a defunct lease ever since. So it would be really good to put this on proper footing. And the lease that's in front of you this evening is actually one between ourselves as Wilmore allotments and yourselves as a Taunton Town Council. Similar arrangements need to be put in place obviously with the other allotment sites in the Taunton. And we all have our different rules of incorporation. So in terms of more allotments, we are registered with the Financial Conduct Authority as a not-for-profit co-op. And so we have limited liability. That does give us lots of rules that we have to abide by in terms of governance and so on. So we put ourselves on that top of the team to be able to enter into agreements of this nature. So having the security of another long piece, we're making all the members now more confidence in terms of developing what we're doing with the allotments. And for those of you who actually don't have experience in allotments, I can recommend that they're cheaper than the gym, and you can get something at the end. So yeah, well worth considering. And the great thing about allotments as well is that they're very local and they provide a very community focused resource for people in a particular single area. So in our case, we have something like 75 members who are all from the surrounding streets and area around Corkscrew and the benefits that accrue from enabling people to participate in allotments are not just about growing food, they're actually about having some kind of community activity, keeping all engaged together. And we have people who actually participate not just for growing food. That's quite an important element of it these days because of the new prices as well. Some of our members actually rely on food that they grow in order to get relief from them, which is a big factor. We also have members who whose mental health and well-being relies heavily on being able to get out and do things like this and meet other people. So it's a multifactorial benefit to the local community. And what I want to say really is hopefully we can get the long-term feature of our allotment associated with school kids, which will give us the confidence to be able to develop the community benefits associated with our plots even further. Yeah, that's it.
Lovely, thank you very much. So, yeah, so I need a proposer to approve the signing and to be closed for release. Do I have that? Thank you.
I've just got a question.
Oh, right, sorry, yes.
I really support this. I think it's good. It's really great to hear from you. I've got 2 points. Firstly, are we going to roll through making sure that everything works for the rest of our allotments that they're set up, or in relation to that? I also wonder if there's a constitutional point for the full council in the fact that it would probably be good in future, and I hope you haven't with this into our debate this evening, but whether or not you want to bump when we have a public coming to see us and speak rather than to the front of our agenda, so you don't necessarily have to listen to play equipment or our risk register if you don't want to. Yeah.
I think they were moved to the end because of the element of confidentiality, and we had to remove there was the option that we might have had to stop recording. So that's why we moved to back.
Can we not bring people in and out if that's okay? So I don't know whether that's something to look at. I just think that it's very nice if you can give us a try and you want to go home. And I'll stop talking now.
Yes, I think we might have perhaps said don't turn up data. Yeah. Marcus.
Thank you. So just in terms of that point on the rest of the existing allotments, we are working on the way through those where their term are coming to an end. But those that were already in a lease relationship and the lease is existing and has years to run, it doesn't matter that it's said on that lease, Taunton Dean Borough Council, it's still, because the land is transferred, we're still that lease is still valid and operating.
Any other comments, or can I have a proposer that we accept, please? Thank you, Councillor Stainfield. Seconder, Councillor Lester. All those in agreement, please raise your hands. Motion carried. Lovely. You can now run to the club. Yeah, we are now switching up the recording because the next item is confidential.